We are back. All I Ever Wanted podcast. We got Braeden. He came back today because you guys had a lot of questions. And, I appreciate you coming back, my man. Your videos have been doing probably the best on our channel so far, the shorts.
Awesome.
A lot of people want to know about bodybuilding. The big one was, enhancements, PEDs and stuff like that. And, a guy like you, that's valuable knowledge because we like to keep people... We like the honesty of it.
Absolutely.
We want to keep people safe at the same time. We on this show will preface this by saying we're not condoning, promoting anything. We are educating like anything else. You can make a big fucking mistake in your life in bad finances. You can do the same thing when you're taking your health in order.
Absolutely.
So I think before we get into that, I just want a couple minutes here now that I've been working out at your gym. So if you haven't watched the first one, Braeden and his few of his friends, they're just multi-levels of entrepreneurism. You guys, do any of you just do one thing?
No.
See, that's the part I love the most because everything else on this channel is all about that entrepreneur life, that
Absolutely.
1% life, and just seeing how you interact day to day. Between running your gym, running your supplement stores, your side investments, your shoe collections, and shit like that, you just don't stop. So before we get into any of that other stuff, what drove you? Where do you think the turning point was for you that made you realize you're not doing that 9-to-5 shit? I want people to hear that before we get into any of the bodybuilding, because I think that bridges that gap between people trying to figure out, what am I doing wrong? What is everybody else doing so right? Because if you're 9-to-5ing it, there's no wealth that ever comes from that.
For sure. I think for me, it was just the comfortability of it. I don't like that. I don't like being super comfortable. I like being uncomfortable. And I got a business degree. I did the whole thing, go to university, did 5 years, played junior hockey, played university hockey. And when I finished my degree, I went and worked in the corporate world as a purchaser with my business degree, a junior purchaser. And,
so you went along the path that would make sense.
And to be honest, like, a lot of people would come out of university and be like, that's a pretty good gig. Like, had my own office, good salary, and realistically, at the end of the day, when you go into that office by yourself every day, punch the time clock, it's like, I'm, making money, but I'm paying somebody else's bills. The reality of it. And I've never been the guy, we'll call it a rule follower or that kind of things. I'm very outside the lines in everything I do, and I always have been, even as a young kid, whether that was getting a little bit of trouble or you know what I mean. But
he was the scrapper on his team in hockey.
Yeah, I played junior. I was just laughing the other day. Somebody posted my penalty minutes from my second year of junior.
Penalty minutes. How many did you have in a season?
I had 260 penalty minutes in 35 games in junior.
Wow, that's Probert numbers.
So I was my average was like 6.2 minutes per game. I averaged that season.
Penalty per period. I like that.
That kind of speaks a little bit about me. And I guess when it came to that side of things, it was just, punch the clock at 9 a.m., work till 5, and it just felt, I didn't enjoy it. There was no passion in it, and I knew that at some point or another, I was going to not be happy with the position I was in, and I could already feel that's kind of starting, so it wasn't even 6 months, and I just decided to walk away from it.
Wow. In that little space there, did you ever say, oh, shit, I'm making someone else rich, my boss is abusing me, all that bullshit you hear nowadays? Did you complain about it?
No, it was just like I had a feeling over time. It was like, I can't do this forever. I will be a miserable human and be in a place that I cannot stand to be in. And I also, like, on the flip side of that, I wanted more for myself and my family, right? I had a long-term girlfriend at the time that I knew probably would end up becoming my wife, and there's only so much growth opportunity in those areas. There's a ceiling. There's a ceiling everywhere you go, right? Whereas I feel like feel like with entrepreneurship, there is no ceiling. Now there's obstacles and challenges, and I'm still going through them, as you know. And
whereas you guys saw in the first podcast, the shit that he went through just to get the equipment. Forget about opening the doors, building it out, getting your permits, coming up with the money. You didn't even get your equipment.
100%, and that's the stuff, right? Like as stressful as that was. Yeah. I would rather be doing 18 days in Arkansas, sweating my ass off and miserable than waking up at 9 a.m. to go to an office job that I just despise.
Today, next week, next month,
forever.
Next
it's
year.
The same thing, day after day, right? And I don't like...
People call that comfort and security.
That's just it. And I don't like the tedious same thing day after day. You know what I mean? Like, yes, I'm a bodybuilding coach and I have very similar days day to day, but every check-in I get is different. Every response I give an athlete is different. Every move I make within one of my athletes' plans is different, right? We have different things to deal with at the gym every day. It's every piece of what I do is different every day. So I really enjoy that part of it, and I think I was craving that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I walked away, and granted, I went right back into a corporate world job, but at least it was something I was passionate about that I knew was a stepping stone to something bigger. So I had a friend who was a manager at Good Life, and I had been a personal trainer. I had already been doing some online coaching and helping friends on the side. And I was just like, you know what, in the meantime, let's do this. So I went to Good Life, and I was a personal trainer there for a year and a half. Same thing though, same song and dance, right? You're in a corporate world. They don't care about the service you provide. They don't care about what you're doing. They just care about the sales you're making and the numbers you're bringing into the business. So again, it felt very much like I was paying somebody else's bills and working for somebody else, because I was. And there was another piece to that, me leaving there, which it sounds super arrogant, but I believe I'm good at what I do, and I'm very passionate about it. And when I walk into a gym floor at the busiest gym in Edmonton, with the largest personal training roster in Edmonton, and a lot of these people had just taken a weekend course and don't really know what they're doing. Ooh. And I've been working with them for a year, and I still see them taking somebody's health in their hands and doing something that I would call, for lack of a better term, dangerous. Like rounding your spine and excessively loading it on a deadlift. That's going to cause problems over the long term. Maybe not today, but it will over time. And this is probably one of the biggest risks I ever took. I was in the middle of building my first home, and I was about to take on a mortgage for the first time in my life, and I quit that job. So I had no income. I got home one day, and I was talking to my wife, and I had gotten to the point where I was bitching a little bit about it, that like, I don't know how much long I can do this. I just don't like it here anymore.
And you almost got financially tied into being strapped to it.
Yeah, to be honest, I would have rather left and not had any money than continued to do that and have the money coming from it, the paycheck. So I was just like, you know what? I had a conversation with a lot of my athletes who, again, as you learn things over time, everyone's like, yeah, I'll come with you. I'll do the online coaching side of thing. You can go do your freelance personal training, and I'll come with you. And I had a large roster of people, and like nobody came, right? Yeah. So it's like, nobody's here to save me. I got to figure this out. And that's kind of when I branched into the world of online coaching and seen a little bit of success. And it just snowballed from there, from the effort you put in, right? And I think what stood out for me was just the passion I provided day after day. I woke up and I knew that I had to push myself to do something and get somewhere. And my passion fueled that. Because I knew what the vision was, but it wasn't necessarily like I knew how to get there. It was just passion that'll let carry it. And that kind of brought me to starting my first coaching business, which progressed and grew into a corporation where I have coaches under me now. And then that grew into the gym. And everything I've done basically at this point is kind of centered around the fitness industry per se. Mm-hmm. And the next goal for me is realistically reaching beyond that and stepping into other areas. Because I do think also there are ceilings within the fitness industry. Right?
Absolutely.
Like you trade a lot for what I do personally, and I have no problems with this. I love it, and I'll never not do it. But you do trade time for money, right? And realistically, there's only so many check-ins I can do in a week. There's only so many check-ins I can do in a day, and each athlete is paying me a certain amount of money per month. So unless I somehow get more time in my day or more time in my week,
good luck with that.
Which doesn't really work out in this world, there's ceilings to it, right? And I'm not sure those ceilings get me where I want to be long-term. So that's where the other vision comes from, and expanding to other things as well.
Very nice. Hey, that was a good sum of what was going there, and a perfect segue, because you were just talking about fitness and your gym. And this is the last thing I'll touch on before we get into the Q&A portion of it. Just working around your athletes, the amount of respect that they have for the team that you've built. When you walk on the gym floor, it's not like a, hey, ass slap, fist bump. It's the game levels up. Everyone in there respects what you've done, and that's not something I've ever seen anywhere else in really the fitness industry. Mm-hmm. A lot of people will name drop, oh, I know that guy, yep. Or, we went drinking. Mm-hmm. But the floor, when you or Ty or Dylan get out there, everybody's energy goes way up. So whatever you brought to that table, wow, everybody at the gym is better. Then none of them will even doubt it. Mm-hmm. For the moment you bring up any of them, they don't even know what to say. They're just inspired and motivated by what you guys do. And I've noticed that just in the 4 months I've been there.
For sure, and I appreciate that, because that's something that I think is a strength per se that I have, Dill has, Tyler has, is creating a culture, creating a community, and it started, like you said, it started with the team that we built, the bodybuilding team that we built. Like Ty's a perfect example, right? And Dill's no different, but Ty was a young kid, man, like 20 years old when I started working with him. And he was just a bodybuilder that worked his ass off day in, day out, and had passion for it. and wasn't happy with what had happened to him at that point with bodybuilding, and wanted to make a change. No different than what we just talked about with business, right? The business is just the body at this point in time.
Yes.
And so Ty hired me, and from day one, I seen a kid that just cared a lot and would work for his goals. And we're talking about a kid that paid his way through university, flipping Jordans and stuff like that.
I love that shit.
He's built on the hustle, right? And you see it anytime you interact with him. And I knew from day one, and did I know that it would end up being this, where we'd be best friends and running a business together? No, I didn't, but I knew that something would come out of it eventually. And he was one of the first coaches I hired on, and he's the only one that's still on the team from way back then, the original crew I hired on. Because we have cycled through a good handful of coaches, because it's another piece when you become the owner of the business and you're
vested in everything you do and everyone.
They're contractors, right? They're not technically my employees, but they run their own businesses within my business. But on the flip side of that, I look at it now as we run the business together. And realistically, when I bring you onto this team, I want you to represent something bigger and possess kind of the same things that I believe I do. Yeah. And you wouldn't be surprised, but a lot of people would be surprised when it's like you hire somebody on, and it's like, this person's got it. And then very, very quickly, that got it diminishes, and it was all smoke and mirrors.
Oh, yeah.
And they have a very small roster. They have a very small roster, and you give them a year and a half to grow that, and you give them all the tools, and they just can't. Or they're scared to leave situations that will make them better in the long run, but seem scary now, and people just don't jump all over that. And I'm the type of guy that I'll lead you to the water, but if you ain't going to drink, I'm not going to force you to drink, right?
Won't even ask twice.
That's just it. So I give people opportunity. At the end of the day, if you just can't seize it, there's going to be somebody to replace you that will, right? And that's one of the cool things about Ty's. That's never been a thing. He's always been at the top of the food chain and fighting for his meal and so forth, which I love to see, and that's why we get along so well, and it's grown. And then, like you said, going back to the community aspect, I think that's something we all do very well. It started with our bodybuilding team and our coaching team, and I do believe also that's what's kind of bred success, like you said, at the gym, is the community we've built and the atmosphere we've created, where people walk into that gym and they know it's time to train. Whether you're literally a lifestyle person just trying to lose 50 pounds and you're not a bodybuilder, well, we have our personal trainers there that I would argue they've already leveled themselves up by being in that atmosphere, right? Oh, yeah. So it's super cool to see on a day-to-day basis.
The number of young entrepreneurs you have in there, I've never seen that anywhere else. Everywhere else you go, and there's no problem with employees. We need employees. But when your team, your family, your gym, whatever you want to call it, has attracted entrepreneurs as well. So you already know that they understand leveling up every day is the only concept in their head. Forget about just being on the gym floor. These are people with online businesses. These are people with a salary job, but putting in 4 hours a day to be bigger, better all the damn time. And I'm sitting there like, holy shit, you guys got an army. You literally have an army of the next generation
100%.
Of 1%ers. And no one else is going to understand why it is they got there. But you see these people day in and day out. You understand what the word like millionaire or rich is just numbers. We throw this shit out. No one knows what it means. These motherfuckers are there 12, 14, 16 hours a day at 20 years old. They don't even know what they're going to receive. 100%. But I do, because I've seen all that shit. Yep. These are the next me, my friends, stuff like that. And the fact that you guys are culturing this, the pride you guys must have. I know you don't pat yourself on the back very often, but you literally have an army of the next generation of 1%ers, which is what intrigues us. So, you know what? I'm going to leave that there.
Absolutely. Good
Let's get into these questions. So we put up the ability for you to ask Braeden questions on our social media. Producer Mac will write it down here in case you don't know what it is. These are just going to be generic as they came in. It's not going to be in a progression of this. Let's
do it.
I will preface this again by saying if you have an issue with any type of sports enhancement, the chemical side of things, I'm not worried about your personal opinion, but if this bothers you, turn it off right now.
Absolutely.
He's going to be honest. He's not here to sell shit.
Absolutely.
He's here to help us, help our audience learn and do it. What did you say last time? None of this shit is safe.
Absolutely not.
But if you're going to do it, which people are going to, they need
100%.
to know the safest. Not safe, safest. Are we understood here?
Not removing risk, reducing it.
Exactly. We're going to reduce it like we do everything else. Just like we don't want you guys buying a house with the wrong knowledge, because then you're going to be broke for 3 decades. All right. So here we go. Oh, the first one's actually pretty simple, and you may have already answered it. When did the vision goal to have a gym come?
So that was something for me that I actually wanted a long time, and people don't really know this, and you might not even know this, but this vision had kind of started when I was actually working at Good Life. And it was something I knew I wanted because of that culture that I spoke about earlier in this conversation, that I didn't like the feel of it. I didn't like the corporate atmosphere that was coming into a fitness setting. And I wanted something different.
The sales bullshit.
It's not who I am. And it's like, you should be here because you want to fucking change. It's not like you should be here because I convinced you have to change. And that was the kind of environment I felt like I was in. So I wanted something bigger, and it just worked out in that way that, my friend who I was working with at the gym that I had mentioned got me the job, had changed somebody's life. He was a personal trainer as well, had changed somebody's life who we became really good friends with. And he was a young entrepreneur with some money. And the three of us had a conversation. It was like, we should do something bigger and better here, and we could have a really, really successful thing going. And so we started working on it. We built a big business plan for it. We spent a lot of time in meetings going over stuff. And we were kind of at a point that we were about to start negotiating between two properties to snag. We had basically cut all our POs for equipment, and that was just a cool position to be in, because I guess it was one of those things where we were kind of managing partners, and the other partner was more so a financial backing and security in the finance side with finance degrees and stuff like that. So he was going to run the number side of things. We were just going to manage the gym, pick out all the equipment with our knowledge, and use our skills that we had at that time.
Everybody doing their perfect
Absolutely.
job. Yeah.
And it was a perfect world, one might say, in that instance. And then COVID happened. So we were kind of right there. And I'm a very, very risk-tolerant person. So I seen an opportunity with it myself. So did my one partner. And it was like, I want to do this still. And we'll keep our doors open when everybody else closes. We'll eat the fines. We'll do what we need to give people a place to train. And they'll come from every corner of the city to train, because we'll be the only place they can train. And that culture we talked about that we built, I wanted to bring that there, where people just, training wasn't an option, right? And to this day, I still think it would have been very lucrative. Yeah, we've had pushback from governments and stuff like that, and fought all the stuff that we would have needed to fight. But I was down to do it because I believed in the vision of it. Unfortunately, my one partner, like I said, he was a finance guy and kind of came from the banking world, and he was a little more reserved on the risk-taking side of things, which understandable given his position and what he sees, right? So he kind of pulled back and pulled away, and without that, we just didn't have the means to do it. So from that point, I was even hungrier to do it. And it was like, this is going to fucking happen. I don't know when, but it's going to fucking happen. So what did I start doing right at that point? I started buying equipment for my garage. And I started with small pieces I could find on Marketplace that I just knew were quality pieces. Then I would swap those out, and I started, instead of selling the stuff, putting it in a storage unit. And I ended up making a really, really solid garage gym that most people would be like, holy fuck, you have this in your garage? Because half the pieces that were in my garage are actually on the den gym floor now, and you would never know it.
A lot of equipment there. Way too much.
Yeah, and then, like I said, I ended up getting to a point that I had 2 storage units full, plus my garage full, and I was doing it. And then it was one of those things where there's somebody who owns a gym in like the Edmonton and surrounding area and wanted to partner with me, and it seemed like a good opportunity again. Finance-wise, they had what was needed and so forth, but it just, again, I don't think fostered the vision that I wanted. So it didn't come to fruition, and I ended up just going to Ty and Dale because they, like I said, they were guys I had worked with at this point for a long period of time. They worked on my team as coaches. I trusted them. We had a good relationship, and they were passionate. And I was like, hey, I'm doing this. Do you guys want in on this? Because this is something that I think we could do bigger and better together. It's that saying, right? If you wanna go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together.
Oh my God. I'd love to break off a 5-minute conversation on that. This me against the world bullshit, it's glamorized in movies and social media. No, the right team will conquer. You may do well. A team will absolutely conquer.
100%, man. And the reality is I couldn't handle the load that I have right now between my other businesses and the gym without the partners I have. And in other businesses too, right? I don't have any of these by myself. So yeah, that was just one of those things that realistically they were like, yeah, we want to do it. And at that point of time when they said, yeah, we made it happen. And then that's when the Arkansas stuff and everything started happening. But it was a quick learning curve. But like I said, once it took off, it took off. So that's kind of, I guess, a long drawn out way of saying that's how it was bred and what came to fruition. And it was just something, my personal passion for bodybuilding and fitness drove that. But then there was a bunch of things along the way that just kind of put wood on the fire.
Okay. So was that like a lifelong thing, or like just to go specifically to this? So that was like 2017, 2018 you really started leaning towards, and then 19 was the first
So
try?
I started my bodybuilding journey in 2016 was my first show. And that was around the time I was also working in that corporate world setting. So I would say about 2017, 2018 is when I had left that. At that point in time for me, all I really cared about was bodybuilding and making money and training people. And that's when it really started to pick up what I seen on the gym floor. We had the conversations in Good Life. That's where this business idea, the original one, it was actually called Lion's Den.
Oh, that was you guys.
Yeah, Lion's Den
was
was
us. You guys
us.
had that.
We had a social media page. We had good graphics and stuff.
This. I'm learning shit.
We were
right
very,
now.
very close to launching. That was us, yeah.
Because when I heard that, I was like, wait, isn't that what Ken Shamrock called his jiu-jitsu? Wow,
yeah,
okay.
so we had everything ready to go, basically. And it was just a couple decisions away and a couple pays away from making it happen. Realistically, we had to pay for the equipment, secure the lease, and it was done. And everything was ready to go until that godforsaken word happened, and it changed everything, but for the better now. If I had to go back and make the same decisions I did, I would, for sure.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you know a little bit of my story, and my biggest climbs were during the pandemic when, like you said, the financial people, they got scared. 100%. Anyone that worked with a bank shut their funding down. We stepped in. I'm not even going to talk about what kind of numbers it is. That's for a different show. Wealth can be created in 3 or 4 years, and he just explained that so last year you guys started, it was 7 years in the making.
Yep.
And you just pushed through.
Yep.
Cool. All right, so I hope that answered the question. This one's, you two are, prefaced, I posted saying that we're doing the questions and Braeden would be on. You two are the dream team example of what online influencers should be. No bullshit, just fitness and finance. So I guess that's just kind of a statement, but thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you guys.
He's better with people, so I think that's more towards him. I do not influence people.
I don't know. You do. You'd be surprised, brother. You'd be surprised. Look when people are entering your draws and stuff and showing up when it's not just a quick online entry. You influence people too, man.
All right, then we'll take that as a thank you.
And we also hear people say it at the gym, right? So we have that community. People talk to us, and you are definitely so.
Well, all right. Well, I'm not good at compliments, but I appreciate that one. Have you ever asked one of your clients to stop using? Obviously, this would be PEDs, and if so, why?
Yeah, I have. A couple different scenarios I can think of, and I'm not going to specifically say anything about a person, but there's a lot of things to look at when you're taking PEDs, right? And in my world, a lot of what we do comes down to genetic potential. Okay. And you have to weigh what are the risks versus the rewards. And sometimes people feel like the reward is super high when you're a coach and you do this long term and you see where that person is heading and you see what that physique is actually capable of. Sometimes I believe the reward isn't worth it. And then we do things like, for myself personally, I monitor athletes' blood work and so forth. And like I said, we talked about ceilings in the financial world. I do believe for a lot of people, and this might sound very contrary to what everyone believes and has been told, there are ceilings to the physique for a lot of people. Unfortunately, some people get dealt a deck of cards that genetics just isn't in the window. And for bodybuilding, poor genetics can only take you so far. And I do believe that hard work can outlast good genetics many, many times. But there's also a lot of people who just, like I said, would be better off investing their time and keeping their health in a good place, especially when you start to see health going a certain direction.
Yes, yeah.
And that's where I pull the pin. I'm never going to tell somebody they don't have what it takes. I'll tell somebody, hey, I'll be open and honest with them and tell them, hey, we're not built like a god, and there's going to be people that are built better than us. But if you work hard and we stay healthy over the long term, you can probably outlast these people and you can build something pretty cool here, something you'll be damn proud of. Whereas on the other side of things, right, you get those people that might have very similar genetics, but their health genetics, which is a real thing, the way they respond to PEDs,
Absolutely.
How their health gets affected by PEDs looks very different than the other person we were talking about. And if cholesterols are consistently high and blood pressure is very, very high, and you need to take all these medications to manage this stuff just because you're choosing to put a needle in you to look better, and you really aren't looking that much better in a shorter period of time or a long period of time, at some point in time you have to have the conversation with somebody like, hey, this isn't healthy and not going to get where you think you're going to end up, and I don't want you in the grave, and definitely don't want that on my hands, so we should consider options.
So it's not necessarily a performance result from it. It's if you're going to say, or you probably don't tell them not to. You'll just give them the information and hope they make the most educated solution.
Absolutely, and I will get to a point too, and this has happened before. And actually, I won't say names again, but somebody that I worked with that this has happened to, and I had to remove them from my roster because it was a very large emphasis on PED usage. And for me, it was like, hey, this isn't about the drugs. This is about the drugs are a sprinkle on top, and there's a lot of other variables here, and time being one of those variables. And if you're not willing to put the time in, and you just think the drugs are going to get you there quicker and shorter, and that's your focus, it's not going to work, and I'd rather not get paid by you to work with you.
Yeah.
Even if you have potential, right? So yes, there are people that don't have the genetic potential that might have health issues, but there's also people that have a wrong vision in their head, and I refuse to work with those people because those are the people that want to get in your world, the get rich quick type, right? It's the get rich quick, but your body is the money. Your body is the currency, and that just doesn't work. There's always going to be a trade-off for something there. And when it comes to your health and your future when you're 25 years old and you don't know what it looks like to be 30, 35, 40 years old, and you might not get there because of the decisions you make now, that's not something I'm willing to roll the dice with.
It'll inevitably make you look bad anyways.
100%. And that does affect me in my business, right, when that happens. So.
Okay. Oh, more specific. Compound question. Can you win at the highest level without using tren? Asking for a friend, smiley face.
Yeah, I do believe you can. There's a lot of people that don't really respond well to that drug. Is it a used drug in our world? Especially at the highest levels? Absolutely. Can you do it without it? I do believe you can. Okay. Yeah. Is it a tool that gets used because it offers definitely a lot of benefit? For sure. But we also need to realize the stronger the benefit, chances are the stronger the risk. And when you're talking about tren, that's a very, very real statement, right? It's not a light compound. It's not to be taken lightly. If you're somebody that's not in the bodybuilding world, do I think you should ever use tren? Absolutely not. If you're not trying to compete at the highest level and you're not trying to take this as far as you possibly can in the world of bodybuilding, I don't believe trenbolone is a drug you should even consider using.
Can we break off that for a second then? Because you blew my mind when you explained this to me. Can you tell people what it was developed for? Maybe they'll understand why you'd put this in yourself.
Well, so originally it was literally, I believe it was Finaplex, and it was tablets that were put in cows to basically make super cows. And I mean, when we eat steak, when we eat meat, it's muscle meat, right? Yeah. So the more muscle a cow has, the more meat you will get from that animal. And that's realistically what these pellets were originally made for. They were implanted into cows and fed to cows, and you got freaky cows from it. And don't get me wrong, there's a lot of bodybuilding drugs that actually have really cool backgrounds and were invented for
other purposes,
specific purposes over time, whether it was during wars way back when, which there's, like I said, when you understand drugs and you actually research them and know where they came from. Yeah, there's a lot of shit like that actually, right? You look at like some of these fat burners, and I won't specifically say the names because I know people will Google it and be terrified and or try it or whatever, but they were literally invented to keep soldiers from dying in the cold. Yeah. Because it would keep them so warm, right? That warm up their core temperature.
Vibrating so much that it's warming your body up. Don't Google this shit, you guys. Right? Just stay the hell away.
It's not something you play around with. But is there a time and place in this world, in my world of bodybuilding? Mm-hmm. For sure, when you understand application, you understand dosage, you understand how to use the drug, whether that comes to half-lives and all that kind of stuff, right? Which probably goes over most of your heads. And if you don't understand those things, don't put anything in your body, because you need to understand those first and foremost, and at least have somebody in your corner that does and have some sort of guidance for it.
Yeah, the medical background, not just a physique that you want to look like.
100%.
Understand why it's doing it, because like you said, this trend started out with cattle, and you can be like, cool, that just proves that it puts on more muscle. Do you know the lifespan of cattle for the commercial industry? About 20 months. So
Facts.
that's not something you fuck with unless you are educated.
Yeah, like if you were 19 years old and had a lifespan of 20 months from that point onwards, knowing in 20 months you're dying, fuck yeah, put whatever you want on my body.
Live the best. do the Ziz route. Go lines of coke off a stripper's ass, trend in yours, and just go for it. But God.
That's not reality, so... Yeah.
Your thoughts on users who claim natty status?
That's one thing that actually really bugs me. I made a decision the second I put a needle in me and knew that I was going that route, that I would own it and be upfront about it. Now, that doesn't mean I need to walk around parading it, but if somebody asked me, I made a decision, I would never say no.
The responsibility of them not thinking, oh, I can do that.
Right, and this goes into a million different avenues. It's like, okay, well, let's look at, and Ty and I have had these conversations with Jordan shoes and stuff, and it's like, why are you buying fake Jordans? Because you want to be a part.
I hate that world.
You want to be a part of some club. Well, if you want to be a part of that club that bad,
you got to earn it.
Work hard enough and earn it to join that club. Just like you're the Rolex we were talking about and stuff, right?
Yeah.
Fake rollies, all this kind of stuff. It exists everywhere.
Yes.
If you want to take the shortcuts and get those things, you absolutely can. But if you're going to take steroids, it's no different. You want to be a part of a club that walks around with a sidewalk crack and fucking physique, and you're not willing to say that you're taking things. And the reality is, anybody that understands these drugs and knows a thing about a thing or two will know that you're on PEDs. There's certain looks and certain things that PEDs create in a body, and it's very, very easy to identify.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think, to be honest, for lack of a better term, I think they're fucking clowns. If you're walking around and saying you're natural, and there's a lot of people on higher levels of this industry that are doing this, and I think it's horrible. I think it's like, you're creating a vision for some of these young kids, these 16, 17-year-old boys and girls that think they can become you and do it naturally. And being in a position that I'm in, where I'm the coach and I help people get to those physiques, and hearing people come to me saying, I want to achieve this.
Liver King.
Yeah, you know what I mean? And I want to achieve this, but I'm not willing to use PEDs. And it's like, hey, I'm not here to convince you to use PEDs, but I'm here to let you know that person uses PEDs, right? And like,
doesn't mean don't go train hard, but
Dwayne
just understand.
Johnson.
Oh, God.
A prime example. I was asked yesterday if I thought Dwayne Johnson used PEDs. And I was like, are you fucking kidding me? Of course he uses PEDs. There's like, the guy had
300 pounds in
the
his
guy
life.
had gyno when he was a wrestler.
Yeah.
You don't just get gyno and be jacked. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of different pieces of that. And when it comes to the bodybuilding world, I mean, this bugs me even more because so when it comes to the federation that I coach in, which is the Canadian Physique Alliance, which is kind of the highway to the IFBB Pro League, and I coach athletes in the Pro League as well. I have a good handful of pros that I work with. There is a natural stream to that, where you do get piss tested when you win, and then you go to the next level, and you go to the national level, and you get piss tested if you win at the national level. If you win at the national level, you get your pro card. And then you go the natural pro route, which realistically, those pros are still IFBB pros, and they can compete in the open shows. The real ones who are natural choose not to because they understand what that looks like and that they will get fucking smoked.
Oh, yeah.
The playing field is not
60
fair.
Pounds, yeah.
100%, right? But
those are already the genetic potential elite of the natural guys, and they couldn't even compete against someone who's not even ranked.
100%. And then you go to these natural national shows where people are competing for a pro card. I know coaches specifically that will put people on drugs and understand drugs enough that they can manipulate things, remove them in time so they're not detectable. And unfortunately, that's a real part of this thing too. And I really wish that would leave our sport, because I've been the guy that had athletes get second. It happened to me twice at nationals to athletes that I knew were enhanced because I knew who they were coached by. And it ended up turning out that they had told people they were enhanced and this and that, right? Even just this past season, there was a female competed at a natural pro show, and I think it was 5 weeks earlier, was backstage talking about what she was running to an athlete of mine at an open, non-tested show that was also a national show. And we're talking about a very, very good athlete. But again, it's the way that I look at it is this. If you're going to take drugs and go into a natural show, you're an absolute loser because you're not willing. You can't win at the level when it's an even playing field. So you're willing to stack the cards in your favor and go on that side of things to get a pro card, and then what? Now you're gonna go to the pro level and get fucking smoked because you can't even win at the national level where it's other enhanced athletes. Good luck.
Yeah.
So yeah, that I have a bone to pick with that one, as you can tell, and I can't stand it. Right? It drives me absolutely fucking nuts. Embrace it. If you're going to do this, that's one of the decisions you have to make, and there's a lot of things you have to think about and decisions you have to make when you go this route. That's a very strong one of them. When people ask you if you're enhanced, you should own that and say yes, because if you're scared to, you're not ready to do it.
And you're embarrassed. You're also admitting that you can't do what you're trying to promote.
100%.
That's what I hate about social media is you got these guys. I don't care whether you're lying or not, but if you've built up a 2 million follower, and let's say you're a guy and you've got all these young boys looking up to you, and you're selling your brand, you're making money, lying to them
off of the idea that you're
that
something
they can
you're
look
not.
like you, yeah. And that to me, I could never get away with that in my business.
No.
So I don't know how someone can go to bed at night and say, yeah, I just lied to a bunch of people to get paid.
It doesn't make sense to me, and it never will. Guys like us just can't wrap our head around it, and that's why I try not to lose too much sleep over it.
Yeah.
But like I said, when I see it, I definitely will speak up against it. And if people ask me, even online, I'll tag a person and call them out. I've done it before because I have no problem with it. And if you want to come back to me, if you want to sit in a call and go, you want to sit at this table with me and go back and forth about it, I will any day of the
Been in
week.
the game too long
Yeah.
to be lied to. Yeah. All right. What to take for bad rotators and knees, motocross and labor work for decades? Is that something that they can help to
Yeah,
help?
for sure, especially if we're talking PEDs here,
Yeah.
right? Something, and I know people that are natural and haven't taken performance-enhancing drugs per se for the idea of enhancing performance or enhancing physique, but have been dealing with injuries for a long time. And peptides, there's a world of PEDs that kind of branches into peptides, which are like research chemicals that are used per se in like the medical field, but not actually used in the medical field. But there's some really cool things. So like the two I'm speaking of specifically are BPC 157, which is short for body protecting compound 157, and TB 500. Very, very good. They call it the Wolverine healing stack. I've used it myself. I've used it in many athletes. I have a really cool example of what this stuff can do, and I don't mind sharing.
Please do.
I will for sure. But so there's a lot of studies on these things actually. There are studies.
Was this what you had told me when I messed my shoulder up?
With my hamstring?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. So there's these peptides, for a long story short, they basically just speed up the healing processes in the body. They drive blood flow. So there's a lot of studies that show what these things do, but realistically, one of the coolest studies, they actually removed an Achilles tendon from rats. And they were using peptides to create healing and a healing atmosphere in these rats. Well, the rats actually regrew an Achilles tendon.
That blows my mind.
Which is mind-blowing, but it creates cell formation, right? And you basically, he rebuilt structural tendons and ligaments that were required.
It came back.
Yes, and they do repair things, right? Because even if you look at a tear, a pretty severe tear, well, what needs to happen there? You technically do need to regrow pieces of that thing to form the bond and strengthen over time, right? So that's what these can do. Now, do they solve every problem? No. I mean, I have problems right now I'm dealing with for the last long period of time, which are just fucking pissing me off, for lack of a better term.
You still go put 5 plates on the fucking bar.
100%, because that's just what I know how to do. Probably a problem, but hey, here we are.
Gotta admire that dedication.
And like I said, I mean, they don't work magically for everything, because I will be completely transparent. I am using them right now. And am I instantly fixed overnight after a week or two of use? No. It still takes time and other modalities, but they work. So going into my situation that we spoke about with my hamstring, I was doing a stiff leg deadlift, and I was pretty strong at the time. I was at the bottom of the stiff leg deadlift, and I just felt my left hamstring completely unravel, like one of those yellow ropes that's kind of twined together. When it gets old, it unravels. Well, I felt my hamstring do that at the bottom of the movement. My right one was like tight in the stretch. The left one was tight, and then all of a sudden I felt the left one go super loose and lengthen. And it kind of popped and felt horrible. It was burning. It was bright red within minutes.
So
swollen.
yours hurt. See, mine didn't. I felt nothing. I just couldn't move.
Yeah.
I couldn't bring my left leg forward.
Mine hurt. But it was more so like a burning sensation. And within a day or two, it was black and blue from my ass cheek to the bottom of my kneecap, which spread all the way to my calf, and the whole back of my leg was black and blue. I was working with a gentleman named I can't even remember his name right now. It was Jeff, but he owns a
If you remember, we'll get producer Mac to toss it in there.
It was, that's okay. It's not the end of the world. He owns a clinic in Edmonton, and he had worked with many Olympians and stuff like that. I went in to see him. We got imaging done. Sure enough, there was a grade 2 tear. So my hamstring was kind of just It was torn, but it was still intact. It wasn't completely torn where I needed surgery to reattach. But it was hanging on for dear life, basically, at this point, I was told. And he got in there with his hands and was feeling it. He's like, oh, yeah, what we saw on the cameras is real. And I was told realistically I shouldn't load it for about 12 weeks at all, like no training that hamstring directly, 8 to 12 weeks at least, but we were going to assess as I was healing. I was using peptides at the time. I was using a little bit of growth hormone as well. And I was healing very fast to the point that I was seeing him weekly. We were working on stuff and we were about 4 weeks in and he was like, what are you doing? And I was like, what do you mean? Like scared that I had fucked something up? And he was like, you are like healing crazy fast. I can feel it in there. And I was like, when I told him, and he's a professional and in that world, like he's not going to tell you, yeah, do those things. But it was like, I can tell you that whatever you're doing is working. So don't
advise it. Yeah.
Don't stop doing what you're doing. Keep doing what you're doing. But I'm not telling you what to do. Basically is kind of the way that conversation went. And I kept doing what I was doing. And within 8 weeks, I set a PR on stiff leg deadlifts. So I actually pulled a heavier load than I had torn my hamstring with 8 weeks later when I was barely able to walk when it first happened. And that's not normal healing speed. That's not normal healing process. So when I say that these things work, they work very well. Now, would I say there's a ton of risk involved in using them? To be completely honest, I wouldn't. This is something that I've actually used in my mother. And I would use in people when they're in pain and cannot relieve pain from a certain type of issue. I'm not going to get into everything, but you're talking like tennis elbow, golfer's elbow, those type of things that are just inflammatory and tendonitis and those kind of things that are consistently, I mean, if you're in our world, you're moving all the time, you're training all the time, and taking that time completely away is really tough to do. This does speed up that healing process. So again, you need to understand how to use it. You need to understand the quality of stuff, where it's coming from and whatnot, but I do believe they work and they work very well.
Okay. And just as this one I can actually give a little bit of feedback on. I'll get producer Mac to put the picture in right now. And what that was when I tore the membranosus off the tendinosis basically back in 2017. He recovered in 8 weeks. I still, to this day, 7 years later, cannot go over 4 plates on a deadlift. It just doesn't even lift.
Yeah.
I have a hole basically under my ass on the left side where, because I didn't go back in for surgery, I just kind of let the muscle die. When your life's too busy, you do stupid things like don't get surgery. That we're going on 7 years this year. So that 8 weeks is nuts.
Yeah, and I had been told, like, this is something that will come back and it will bother you for probably the rest of your life. You will have minor tears here and there and you'll feel discomfort. To be completely honest, I haven't, and I can stiff leg deadlift awesome. 500 plus pounds. And
I watched them.
No problem at all, right? I mean, it's hard, obviously, but that's one of those things that, like, I don't have issues with that. Do I feel the odd, like, clicking in the back of my hamstring and stuff here and there? For
You're getting
sure.
old.
Exactly. I just attribute that to age, not that specific injury.
Yeah. All right, next one. Do SARMs serve a real purpose?
I don't believe so. I don't ever use them, and I've transformed some pretty nasty physiques, as you've seen. I've turned people from amateurs into pros. I've coached pros on some of the best stages in the world, and hopefully this year on the biggest stage in the world. Mm-hmm. And I will never put a SARM in one of those people. I believe the side effects are just as daunting as steroids, and you'll get a lot more bang for your buck out of steroids. And there's been a lot more research done on steroids. The reality is, like we talked about, a lot of these steroids were invented for certain purposes. Yeah. And there is a lot of literature on human trials using them. Whether they were approved, whether they ended up being used by the medical community, a lot of them actually did. Whether that was for AIDS patients or, you know what I mean?
Wasting, muscle wasting.
The SARMs are ones that didn't pass. And they actually...
that's scary.
And there wasn't a lot of research and data on them that is quite promising. So, in my opinion, why are we going that route? I've seen what it does to blood work. It's just as bad as any other steroid will do if you're using them in a manner that will elicit results.
Are they injectable or oral?
Oral. And that's
why people are doing it. Okay,
people
I couldn't
love
figure
them.
out why they...
I believe you can get injectable ones as well, but a lot of them are oral, which is why it's very easy, because if people are scared of the needle. And it's like, if you're scared of the needle, run from this fucking world and this conversation then, because at the end of the day, it's not gonna work out the way you want. There's no oral there's no oral tab of testosterone that's going to work the same way an injectable testosterone will. You know what I mean? There's creams, there's this and that. I was offered testosterone cream for my own HRT. I said, fuck that. If you give that to me, I'm walking out of the room and throwing it in the garbage. And I did just that. I went and got a bottle of test like I knew how to do and put it in my body and got my blood work done and made sure my levels were good by myself. And that's a whole nother conversation. But I mean, I don't want to be hopping in bed with my wife covered in testosterone cream and that going onto her skin.
Oh, fuck, I didn't even think of that.
Yeah, it's a real thing.
Man.
The skin is porous, right?
Yeah.
And just because you're going to absorb some of that doesn't mean somebody else won't if they're in contact with you.
Didn't even think about that.
And that's a real thing, right? You're talking about a lot of these type of creams that they prescribe and stuff because, again, it's taboo to use a needle and inject oils and this and that. But it's like, why do some people get the injectables and some don't? I mean, in my case, I was treated like a drug addict because I had some serious heart complications, and I was open and honest and told them that I used steroids, and they're like, oh, you're a fucking junkie, you're a drug addict, we're not giving you another vial of testosterone to dose your testosterone. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to do it anyways because I'm a junkie, but the reality is I understand those drugs better than they do for a lot of people, right?
And yeah, now that you explained it to me, people who put shit just because they don't put it through a needle, when you put it internally through your digestion, you got your liver, your kidneys.
Yeah, 100%.
Holy shit, some of that stuff's worse.
Absolutely, 100%. And I can speak to, there's oral steroids that you take that are fucking horrible for you. And
what would be the worst one then? Just throw it out so people understand.
Halotestin is a very, very aggressive androgenic drug, and it will completely fucking obliterate your liver and so forth very quick. Now, do we use it in bodybuilding? Absolutely. Should you use it if you're not bodybuilding or powerlifting? Absolutely not. It's very, very taxing. Now, the way we use it in bodybuilding, very short bursts of time for a very specific goal, and we understand what it's doing and why we would use it. So we put it in for a short period of time, let it do its thing, pull it out, fix the problems it created, because the nice piece is the liver is the most resilient organ in the human body. Yeah. But it's only resilient so long. Because if you keep fucking blasting it and blasting it and blasting it, you will run into problems, right? And again, you talk about long-term issues with bodybuilding and PED usage, dialysis. People go on they have to get kidney issues because your kidneys filter your blood. When you're injecting something, it's going into your blood. Water balance in the body. A lot of people, and one of the biggest reasons people have to go on dialysis is uncontrolled blood pressure. Because your kidneys also filter your water levels in your body. And if you're bloated all the time and holding a ton of water and your blood pressure's through the roof, that's a very large stressor on your kidney. Yes. Now you're going to take a bunch of other things and you're going to stress your liver out at the same time, right? Now you see why this can be dangerous. Now again, can you do it properly? Yeah. Take care of your kidneys and your liver by not abusing the drugs.
Not drinking on the weekend on top of all of this.
If you're somebody that's drinking every weekend or going out and partying on the weekends, stay the fuck away from drugs and my industry, please.
Yeah.
Go train. There's nothing wrong with being the person that's a weekend warrior and works out during the week and takes care of their health Monday to Friday, and on weekends goes and has beers or whatever. That's fine. If you want to do that, that's up to you. I don't really care. But don't come in my world and pretend to be what we are.
Hardcore, yeah.
And use the drugs to look good at the parties you go to. I think that's fucked up.
Again, Google's is.
But then again, yeah, exactly.
The best 2 years of his life,
perfect example.
And that's when it ended.
Right, and these are the people that get hurt. These are the people going out ripping lines of blow, doing Molly on the weekends, and hammering all these drugs all the time, and creating an environment where they're very body dysmorphic. They can't take their shirt off without being on drugs and so forth, and that leads to a very toxic mindset and person
and body
per se. And then it's like now you don't only have an addiction to whatever the fuck stimulants and all these other drugs. You have an addiction to steroids as well, which is a real thing. Right, so yeah, that's on.
We'll drop it there. He's getting mad at people. Yeah, completely get that. All right. Oh, producer Mac.
I have a question.
Yes.
You talked about something called a SARM.
SARM.
Whatever you were talking about just a minute ago.
Yeah.
I forget what it breaks down to.
Selective androgen receptor modulator.
Selective androgen.
So basically, what they say SARMs can do is they selectively act on androgen receptors. So basically what it's saying is it's going to pick and choose in your body which androgen receptors it works on. An androgen receptor is basically a site in your body that responds to androgens, which are essentially an androgen, like testosterone, those type of things. You have receptors in your body. You have estrogen receptors. You have all these type of things. And basically it's selectively choosing which ones to act on, which ones to turn on, which to not turn on and use in layman's terms. it's been proven in studies that doesn't really work.
Doesn't do it.
So
Just
again,
a clever name.
Again, yeah, exactly. And a lot of people, to be honest, in that world, speak about certain drugs and call them SARMs, and they're not even SARMs. So that, again, when they're speaking of, like, I'll spit one out there. MK677. MK677 is not a SARM, but it's referred to as a SARM by almost everybody. It's actually not a SARM. It's a growth hormone secretagogue. Very different things.
Well over my head. No,
Right.
But it's nice to know so this is the whole point here is reach out. We're going to have a social media there. If you have a question that some other idiot is just trying to sell you a product and they tell you it's safe, don't ever listen to the guy selling it to you.
100%.
Find someone like Braeden who's going to be like, he's going to give you, he has no allegiance to you other than he wants to, he doesn't want another negative, like a casualty in the bodybuilding world because it makes everyone look bad. Reach out. The man's just going to give you an honest approach to this.
100%.
With
Absolutely.
this, not... All right, we'll move on. Are breast implants a requirement for a serious run at being a top-level female competitor?
No. Do they help? Yes. And it depends on the division, right? Are you talking bikini or are you talking...
Yeah, they didn't write that. They just put female competitor.
So I'll just get into it. Are you talking a more muscular division? I coach women's physique pros. I coach bikini pros. I've coached women bodybuilders, right? Do a lot of them have implants at all levels? Yes. Have I seen girls succeed at the highest level and win pro cards and become competitive pros without breast augmentations? Absolutely, I have. So is it an absolute requirement? No. Does it change things? I think it does have a benefit for sure. I mean, one of my pros that I coach right now, a bikini pro, everybody's probably seen her at the gym. She's a phenomenal athlete. She does not have a breast augmentation. Do I think eventually she'll probably get one? Probably, if I was guessing. Have we had the conversation that she needs it? Absolutely not. Would I tell her she needs it if she wants to be an Olympian? Absolutely not. That's a decision she has to make because, again, just like steroids, that's a very big decision for a female to make.
Yes.
Right? And once they're there, they're very complex and complicated to get removed. And at some point in your life, if you want them removed, hey, that's right. And I have a perfect example of this. I mean, my wife does not use PEDs at all. And have we talked about the conversation of breast augmentations and stuff? Of course we have. I've been with her for 12 years. And does she like the idea of it? Sure. Does she want them? No, because she wanted to be able to breastfeed and do all those things. And that meant more to her. And for me, I said, you know what? I don't really care.
Yeah.
But if that's the decision you make, I respect the hell out of that.
Yes.
Because I want you to mother my child. And if you want to breastfeed my child, I also want you to. Right? So... Again, those
so you got to think in the future, not just in the present.
100%. Those are the type of things that you need to think about when going that route as well. I think there's been a very large thing in the industry, too, with girls who get breast augmentations, speaking out about their, I can't even remember the name of it, but it's a sickness that comes if you get breast augmentations. And do I think some girls just regret their decisions and get them removed and say they had it? For sure. Do I think other girls actually have serious complications with them? Absolutely.
I've
So
seen the blood work on some of my
100%, right?
friends.
So it's one of those things that you're putting a foreign object in your body. I have one in my body. I don't have implants, but I have an implantable device that's a defibrillator. And I know that shit changes your body.
Fuck yeah.
And it changes the way you move. It changes the internals. Your body doesn't like foreign shit inside it. So going back to the original question, do I think it's an absolute prerequisite? No. Do I think it helps some people? For sure.
Okay. And take that shit seriously, because I know that you can just go get a discount set put in for $1,800 in
and that will
stuff like that. That will fuck your shit up. You could be
100%.
laid up 6 to 12 months when you go septic because you went to do it cheap. I'm not advocating for it, but if you're going to do it, research. Because I've had friends, like he said, they don't realize that was the problem.
Yeah.
3-4 years later, they're like the jaundice is setting in. Their reproductive system is shut down, and they're just shadows of who they used to be because what was an image thing they didn't even realize was poisoning them.
100%. And there's, like I said, I mean, there's other complications with that in the bodybuilding world. If you get a very poor surgery done and you have one point in each direction or higher or lower than the other, that
point deductions.
100%. That looks not pleasing on stage, and that will stand out, and you probably will get dogged for that, especially in something like bikini where you're looking for a beautiful, very symmetrical look, not super peeled or anything like that. You're looking for a very pretty female. Yes. Right? And that's distracting to the eye, and a judge will see that. And if you have a physique that you're fighting neck and neck with, side by side, and one of them is has a breast augmentation that's been done for $100. The other one has
you can tell.
a good breast augmentation done by a real good surgeon. You'll probably lose to them.
Yes.
But again, I think there's other complications that are much more important, like you spoke to, that can cause issues. And I think another thing to think of that, if whoever's asking this question, if you are going that road and you are a competitor, is be very diligent with your recovery. Because I've actually worked with 2 females who love the gym, and they were incredible athletes, and they just want to fucking train, and they hate being down and out for 8 to 12 weeks, which is the reality of the surgery. You can't do under the muscle. You can't do like anything. Not to mention you have stitches inside and outside. If you start sweating, there's complications. And I've seen it twice with athletes that I worked with, because I've worked with tons of girls who've gotten, I had a girl who a week and a half ago got a breast augmentation done. And again, TB500, BPC 157, they work very good to help heal this kind of thing. But with that being said, again, if you take your recovery lightly and you don't take it seriously, you're probably going to have some complications. You're probably going to open up your stitches and see your implant and or have it fall out through the stitches, which is a real thing, and I've seen it happen. I've never been there witnessing it, but I've had it happen to an athlete who didn't listen, didn't take their recovery seriously, reaching overhead when they shouldn't be going overhead, doing pull downs, all that kind of stuff. Now you're talking problems, and that's going to triple your recovery time.
All right, I got a quick shout out. We're at Central here. They keep refilling our coffee, so I don't drink that
Central.
slowly. Yeah, Central.
Absolutely.
They always give us their locations. We're at their new one on the south side, so very cool.
Beautiful spot.
All right, here's another one. Maybe I'm saying, are EPOs worth taking in bodybuilding? I don't know what that is.
I'm not super familiar either.
Capital E, capital P, capital O. I don't even know what that is. Maybe we'll get it on the next round then. That's kind of a weird one. You don't have to answer this if you don't want to. Thoughts on girls who are on gear that brag they lift more than the boys?
I mean, let them.
Yeah, I don't understand why this is an issue.
A lot of times it's reality. Now, I have females who are not on gear who train harder than a lot of dudes. Right? And
at that gym, yes. Yeah.
That's the reality. And I have people from all across the country and in different countries training harder than dudes. And I guarantee you, there's dudes that get hurt by that. And it's like, well, fucking train harder then.
Yeah, she's not doing anything. You can't.
If you have a problem because here's the thing. Just because, is the question train harder or lift more?
Lift more. So almost like they're bragging that they can lift more, but you'd think chemically that they should be able to. But I don't know where that limitation ever was.
For sure. And I mean,
who gives a shit?
If the playing field is level, a female will never outlift a man. You know what I mean? So if an enhanced female is taking gear and a male is taking gear, it's just not going to happen. Like, physiologically, we're built different, and that's by design, for fuck's sakes. There's a reason. Like, we're protectors and that kind of stuff, right? It's look at our ancestors, and through history, that's what we're meant to do.
Yeah.
But
and we're not playing that gender and sport shit. He's just, you strip everything off me, there isn't a woman alive with bones as big as mine.
Absolutely not. They don't have the same level of muscle mass. Go through the fucking population, look at the size of males versus the size of females. It's not a fucking it's not a debate. We don't need to go down that road anyways and stir up political bullshit.
Yeah.
But
that wasn't the intention of this. I think it was just probably some natural guy that got pissed off that a girl lifts more than him.
And that's a reality. I mean, a perfect
Respect that shit.
A perfect example, and I will name drop here. Look at Peyton at our gym. Peyton trains like a fucking freak. She's
squatting like 400 fucking pounds.
She's a pro bodybuilder. She's a pro bodybuilder, turned pro last year, and the reality is she is stronger than a lot of dudes at the gym. Is that a problem? Not necessarily, because if those dudes are showing up and training hard, maybe they're not enhanced. Maybe they're not a bodybuilder. She's stronger than you. That's the fucking reality of it, though. You can't be upset about that. As long as you're showing up and working your ass off every day to get better and look better and feel good, that probably will not affect you.
Matter what someone else
so
does.
What affects you is if you're the person sitting there saying she shouldn't be stronger than me, and she is, and she fucking trains harder than me. That's a you problem, not a her problem, not an us problem, my friend.
That's just respect. I'm like, my 100%. God, she's even 150 pounds?
No, and I think she's. Well,
it's off season now.
Yeah, but no, she's not. She's definitely on stage. She's
115, buck.
I don't want to say tiny because she's
She's not
she's
tiny.
muscular. She's very muscular, but she has a small frame,
Yes.
right? And she looks very feminine and stuff. And it's like I said, if you're fucking upset about that, don't bring that to me. Train fucking harder then and get stronger.
Yeah.
And if you think you need PEDs to get stronger and that's a route you want to go, make that decision yourself. I'm not going to make that for you. Like I said, I think using PEDs should generally stick to this industry and the industry I'm in, but I'm okay if somebody wants to do it safely and out of harm's way, and you're not in a competing setting. But don't fucking bitch about a girl training harder than you who's a pro bodybuilder.
all the girls at the den, well, at least half of them, definitely move more weights than I do. Just at my age, just being self-preservation, I have no inclination to put 3-4 plates on a squat, and they're burying them. These are not half reps, but we're gonna leave that there. I don't know the point of that question. If you want to elaborate and ask again, I can bug Braeden, but this just sounds like someone who's butt hurt that a girl outlifted him.
Big time. Okay, so we just looked up EPO.
Oh, yeah, back to the EPO question.
And bodybuilding. And it's basically doping, blood doping. So realistic, this is, from what I'm gathering here, they're talking about what athletes in the Olympics used to do and stuff like that when they've been busted for that kind of thing. I believe it's probably prevalent in the world of bodybuilding somewhere. Do I think...
Can you explain it? I still don't know what it means.
Reality is, the way I'm interpreting this, what I'm reading right now, removing blood, right? So you remove a lot of blood, you go train, and then before a competition, you pump that blood back in you, so you have way higher levels of oxygen going to the body and so forth. Because that's really...
Oh, okay. Fighters have done that
Yes,
to try and drop
absolutely.
an extra pound and then put it back in.
Absolutely, and you're stronger, your performance is higher, right? Because all of a sudden, you're used to performing in a setting where you have less oxygen available to you, which is incredibly important for outputs and so forth. Now you're in a setting where you're super physiological with the amount of oxygen you can give yourself and so forth. Again, I'm not going to pretend and sit here right now that this is something I understand to a massive degree. Will I ever do it? Absolutely not. Have I done it? Absolutely not. Do I care about that? Absolutely not. So in my opinion, as somebody that is in this world of bodybuilding and works with athletes on the higher level stages, I don't think it's necessary. And do some people do it? For sure. I'd be willing to guarantee there's a lot of crazy shit that happens in this industry.
To win? Absolutely.
You know what I mean? So do I think the best people in the world are doing EPO or using EPO, whatever the hell you want to call it? No, I don't think so, because again, I know...
My concern would be, would that not alter your blood pressure instantly? Like just putting in another bag or two of blood when you're not really deficient?
Well, you have to think about it this way, right? Hypothetically, your body is going to create blood at a greater level per se, but if you're consistently removing blood and reoxygenating it and pumping it back into your body, again, I don't understand this to a deep degree. I'm not going to pretend that I do, but I would argue that if you're removing blood, your blood pressure is going to drop, right? And then pushing blood back in will have it kind of normalize again. Now, will the body create blood cells at a greater rate when you pull a lot of blood out? Absolutely. So if they're putting that blood in when they're already back to normal and or above normal, it's going to create issues. There's going to be more hemoglobin, hematocrit, all that kind of stuff. Red blood cell count will be through the roof, but that's generally the purpose. And as far as I'm concerned, if that's what you're trying to do, are you worried about your blood pressure? Fuck no. You know what I mean? Like you're taking this risk for a certain purpose. And I think the last thing you're super concerned about is your blood pressure.
All right. Before the show, we agreed that we weren't going to talk dosages and stuff like that. So this is just...
I can dive into small amounts of it. My biggest problem with that is I just don't want to say something on here to you guys, and you guys think you can go and run and do that, or somebody listens to it and says, well, he said this, et cetera, right? So I will talk about some things for sure. So put it out there, and we'll see where I run with it.
Safest mass building cycle. I don't know. That's such a generic term. I don't...
It is.
Are you looking for, to me, I could hear that and say, are you going to be world's strongest man, or are you going to step on stage? Those are two different protocols.
For sure. And are we talking strength building? Are we talking actual muscle size building? The two are different as much as they do overlap in some areas. I'm not going to write a cycle for you guys right now. I'm not going to put out specific dosages and compounds and stuff like that. But I will start with this, and this might piss some people off. Half more than half of you, probably almost all you, don't fucking train hard enough. And a lot of you guys don't fucking eat enough food. Yeah. The hardest part of bodybuilding, I'll tell you right now, for me as somebody who just got to 260 pounds and it was a fucking struggle to get there, and I was staying up till 2 a.m. trying to get my food in, that's the hard part of bodybuilding. Putting a fucking needle in your body and going to the gym and training is easy. Trying to eat the amount of food it takes to get there, and when you have a cheat meal, that's a massive meal, you drop 2 pounds the next day, that's not fucking fun, and that sucks.
Well, he's not putting tiramisu in. I'm watching these guys meal. They're putting it in clean. I've told you guys on my fitness channel, I have a hard time putting 2,500 calories down if it's clean.
And I was sitting around 5,500 there for a bit, right? Like, if anybody's listening to this, so personally, myself, just from an efficiency standpoint, I won't push more than 5 meals. Now, have I in my
1,000 calories a meal?
Pretty well, yeah. Have I been at a place before? And this is, again, where I was kind of in, and this is another piece of bodybuilding we can talk about however long you want to sit here and talk about this. Have I been in a setting where I believe bodybuilding became a little bit toxic to me, and that's all I cared about at a time in my life? For sure, because I had one goal, and I'm a very goal-focused person, and my goal was to become a pro bodybuilder.
Obsession is
and I was setting alarms and waking up at 2 a.m. with 90 grams of protein in a shaker cup and 100 grams of oats blended with nut butter, and I would wake up at 2 a.m. and slug that shake because I had 7 meals. Right? That's not something I do now because I also understand the value of sleep and trying to have not broken sleep and that kind of stuff. And I also just, quite frankly, don't care to be a pro bodybuilder. If it ever happens and I step on stage, sweet. I'm not hell-bent on that. I care more about my athletes. I care more about my family, my businesses, those kind of things. But I still am a bodybuilder through and through, and I do bodybuilding, I would argue, probably a lot better than most people that are still competing to this day because I fucking love it and it's a piece of me.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, and you can't remove it, or else that whole thing that we talked about at the beginning, you're no longer you.
Yeah.
You can't remove that just to do
100%.
more business.
Yep.
That's what drives you every day to be like, no, I can conquer that shit too.
Yeah, and I'll be completely transparent with what I do. I mean, right now I'm on 150 milligrams of testosterone a week, which is HRT. That's what people walk around with. Their doctor prescribes them to keep normal test levels. I'm still 255 pounds and eating 4,800 calories a day right now, so almost 5,000 calories. And I do that between 5 meals. Right, and again, for me, the reason I do choose to do 5 meals, whether people think that's right or wrong, because some people argue you got to have 6 or more. Some people are saying it doesn't matter if you have 3. I believe there is 3 meals. I believe is not efficient enough to bodybuild because you need to take into a lot of different factors like muscle protein synthesis and how many times you can spike that during a day, etc. But for me, it's an efficiency thing because, again, I just said I care more about my people and my businesses. So for me to have to stop 6 times a day instead of 5 times a day, it's a lot easier for me. And there's time. My best workflow is actually in the morning when I get up before I've even eaten. So I like waking up, and Ty and I ran into this problem that we were bitching about on social media because I'd wake up at 5:30, I'd go straight to the gym and I'd start working and I'd have my coffee and my water and I would work, and all of a sudden it's 11 o'clock and I'm like, fuck, I haven't eaten yet. But I got a lot done. But I haven't eaten yet. Now I have to jam those 5,000 calories in before I go to bed in the next 12 hours.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's like, fuck, this is a struggle. So I actually forced myself to having to start eating earlier, as much as I love being efficient first thing in the morning, because that's a nightmare. And it starts a bad cycle because then you have to stay up late to get your meals in, but then you're either sleeping 4 hours or you're sleeping your 6 to 8 hours. And if you sleep 6 to 8, you're starting late, and then it just, the whole fucking thing cycles again, right? So for me personally, 5 works way better because my pre and post workout meals are very quick to make. They're very easily digestible. I can eat them in 5 minutes flat and get back to doing what I need to do. But like the reality is, if you want to bodybuild and you want to set your life on this path and be the absolute best you can be, you're going to have to structure some things in your life around it, right? Like for me, I eat 90 minutes before I train, no sooner or no early, like no closer to my training window. And how much can I really get done in an hour and a half when I've kind of flipped that switch? I don't like going back to doing check-ins because then I feel like I'm rushing to get them done between that hour and a half I have. So if you see me at the gym and I eat my pre-workout meal and I'm just kind of wandering around talking to people and having the community feel and making those connections, that's probably because I don't want to go sit in my office and half-ass something or rush to do something. And that's my time to get ready to train. And that's a whole nother ball game. Is like when I train, me and Ty train together and people watch us and people admire it because we have the ability to go to a really fucked up place during our sets that a lot of people can't get to. And that doesn't happen by not being there mentally, right? So much like me, I'm very fortunate. I came from a high-level sports background. Before hockey games, you would do things and you had your pregame rituals. and that kind of stuff. I was the weirdo that showered before every fucking hockey game I took at the rink. I would shower before I went to the rink, do my hair, put my suit on, you name it, and then I'm at the rink, and before we go for our run and our warm-up, I'm having a fucking shower, or after we do our jog, I'm having a shower, and it's like, that's fucking weird. Well, that got me in the zone. That got me where I needed to be. Much like with training, I have certain things that I do that get me where I need to be, and we notice it, being business owners, right? We have to run the gym.
Yes.
And we'll be in the middle of a session, or we'll be about to start a session, and something happens that we have to deal with. And as far as I'm concerned, I'm a fucking business owner now. I'm not a bodybuilder getting paid $1 million a year to bodybuild, because that doesn't really exist other than the top couple people in the world.
Yeah, exactly.
And I have a business to run. I got people to take care of. And if that happens, unfortunately, I kind of have to leave that setting, but you notice it, and it does affect your session. So anybody that believes otherwise, I'll tell you straight to your face, you're fucking wrong. It does affect your shit, especially if you're in a place where you can optimize your training to that degree.
Yeah. No, the focus these guys got. You guys had that corporate day a few weeks ago, and you guys had thrown 500 on the bar to do RDLs.
Yep.
And this is nuts if you've never seen 30 people gather around 3 guys outdoing each other. What did you rep out, 9 or 10 at 500 pounds?
Yeah, I think it was 8 reps at 500 pounds.
Nuts.
Yeah.
Do you even hear anyone behind you? I didn't think so.
No, it's there's sets that you'll finish where your ears are ringing, and it's like, what the fuck just happened? Mm-hmm. But it's
oh yeah, because everybody in the gym stopped.
Yeah,
and I had their cameras out watching these 3 behemoths just throw 500 pounds around. Like,
it's cool though.
Fucking bending.
It's cool because I will say, like, the environment does change shit.
Yes.
So I'll tell you right now, when you have those people watching, you're going to perform better. Now that being said, am I specifically listening to them? If somebody was cueing me, which I watched back the video, and our buddy who's a freaky powerlifter, shout out to him, Larry, one of the best powerlifting coaches in the city, in Canada. He is, I would argue, definitely the best at that job. He was cueing me through that set, and I didn't hear a single fucking thing that he said. And I watched the video back, and I can hear him yelling certain things. Did I do it or what he wanted to do? I'm not fucking sure, because I wasn't thinking. And it's just like, at that point, my brain is off, and my goal is to not die. Like, in reality, it's like there's a lot of weight in my hands, and that could snap my spine in half.
Absolutely.
So don't let it snap your spine in half. Or you're on a leg press with 10 plates aside. Don't let that shit crush you, because that's the reality of this thing. Now, I think this is kind of getting sidebarred, but I'll just let it ride.
Do it.
A lot of people get caught up in thinking too much during their training. And I think it's an acquired skill over time that you need to officially start out thinking too much. And you need to understand tempo. You need to think about movement patterns. You need to think about moving through space in a proper fashion, because a lot of people don't fucking know where their body is moving, which is crazy to me. Yeah. But I also understand it because I'm very fortunate. Again, I grew up with a sports background. There's a lot of people that didn't have that. Their coordination is different. The way they feel their body is different. So I think early on in a journey like this, you have to spend time establishing those connections and the neural capacity to move in certain ways. And as you get better and better at that, I was just explaining this to somebody yesterday, but there comes a time where the separation decreases, and you no longer think, and it's just normal for you. It's like auto-regulated, right? So people talk to me about the control I have on my heavy lifts when I'm doing hack squats, and I'm not just letting the weight push me down and drop and slam and then stand back up. Because, like, yes, that is brute strength. But on the flip side of that, that's not what essentially builds muscle. I would rather see you on a hack squat going controlled and almost pulling yourself through the eccentric or the lowering of the exercise with 4 plates than watching 7 hammer you into the bottom where it bounces and then you stand back up. Because yes, you have brute strength to stand up with it, and essentially you're just trying not to die and standing up with the weight, just like I had said, but you're not building muscle in an efficient manner, right? So that's an acquired skill over time, and that's something that with my athletes, I really work on and try to get. But on the flip side of that, I think also people take that way too far, right? So that's where I said this is an acquired skill, and you need to start moving away from that skill as you get deeper into your training life. Because if you just hold on to that stretch and squeeze a pink dumbbell bullshit, you're not going to build muscle, right? And that's where there's a separation and divide in the industry right now. Which there's some industry leaders and somebody that I've had a very fortunate period of time to kind of mentor with and work with, and he did my own training. His name's Nick Gloff. I believe he's one of the best, I would argue probably the best in the world at training programming and understanding of the body. And Nick is one of those guys who understands biomechanics better than 90% of people. Way more than that, probably 99% of people. And when you talk to Nick, though, he'll get complex with shit, but he'll also tell you, dude, just fucking train harder and stop thinking. Because that's the primary ingredient in the recipe, is the effort and the intensity. Outside of that, then let's refine that a little bit more. But if you can't fucking train hard and you can't push yourself, you could train perfect. Absolutely fucking perfect. And I see it all the time. Trust me, I see it all the time, and I just shake my head.
Wash, rinse, repeat, and nothing happens for 4 years.
These coaches and these people that just like it working out, so they become coaches, and they take some biomechanics courses, and they think they're a fucking god to muscle building, yet they're 150 pounds soaking wet as a grown-ass male. And I have no problem with you being that size if you're not pretending to understand building muscle at the highest fucking level. Yeah. Because if you don't have any muscle on your frame, how are you going to fucking tell me that I can build muscle doing what you do?
There's no faith in it.
Because as far as I'm concerned, I would rather listen to Branch Warren, who didn't know a fucking thing about mechanics, hurt himself every other training session, but looked like an absolute fucking freak and stood on the biggest bodybuilding stage in the world. Do genetics come into play for him? Yeah. But he was one of the hardest workers this industry has ever fucking seen, and he got where he was because of that. Nobody got to the highest level in this sport because of fucking biomechanics only, right? Whereas people have 100%.
Holy shit.
And you ask a guy like that, look at him. He's absolutely fucked. Do I agree with where he's at right now? No, but I understand it, because you're talking to somebody who blew their aorta in half and still puts 5 plates or 500 pounds on a bar or 7 plates on a hack squat and does the same shit. Do I want to not be able to walk at 70 years old? Absolutely not. Right now, am I thinking about that? Absolutely not, because I have other things that I'm thinking about, and I know that there's going to be a time for me I have to pull back. Yeah. I understand that and I respect that. I don't believe that time is right now. Am I pulling back right now a little bit because of injuries? Yes. I'm listening to my body a little bit more. And this is where I was going with this. You listen to Ronnie, and if you've probably all heard the interview, the guy's he can't even walk anymore because his back is so fucked, and his hips and his spine is so fucked up. And if you ask him if he would change anything about what he did, his response on an interview was, I would get one more rep with 800 pounds on the bar.
Yeah, like if you've watched his videos, he was literally squatting 800 pounds 2.5 weeks before the Olympia. You're talking depleted. And
completely fucked.
Yeah, like
that's
not, and you can't even convince him not to, because he's not listening at that point.
And we're talking about a guy that was working a 9 to 5 as a fucking cop for a majority of his bodybuilding career.
Yeah, like his vest was so small on him that it wasn't going to stop a bullet anyways.
Imagine that guy kicking in your door.
No thanks. I'm just like, shit, whatever I did, I'm guilty. Yeah. Just tell me what I did, I'll sign off on it.
Hilarious.
All right, so anyways, that was safest mass cycle. I don't really want to go into compounds like that, because like you said, someone's going to take it the wrong way.
Yeah, and there's really bad compounds, and there's ones that I would say are safer, but I don't want to say the safer ones and you think that they're safe and can be abused. So
yeah, because until you have your blood work, you've checked your blood pressure.
Yep.
You know what? Maybe caffeine isn't even right for you as I'm pounding down coffee, because I know people that sensitive.
Yep.
So I don't like that question.
Well, and I'll say this. I mean, I have a lot of people start working with me because of my education on PEDs and the roster that I do coach, and they want to get into the world of PEDs. And quite frankly, when you sign up with me, if you're a young kid and or maybe not young, and you're like, hey, I want to start steroids, so I'm going to hire you. I'm going to do a bodybuilding show. I want to go that route, etc. Maybe you've already competed naturally a few times and you just want to bodybuild. Well, guess what? When you work with me, you ain't going on gear for at least 3 months. You're going to give me 12 weeks of showing me you can diet, you can follow a plan, you can check in on time, you can do the shit that I require of you that shows me you're serious about this sport first before I ever have a conversation about putting you on cycle. And then you're going to show me that you can afford the supplements that I give you, which might be $200, $300, $400 a month to make sure you are mitigating risk. Now, when you do that, and I actually used to make my athletes send me receipts of their supplements before I wrote them a cycle. And if they wouldn't show me receipts, I wouldn't fucking write them a gear protocol. Do I still do that? No, because the athlete needs to take some fucking onus too.
Yes.
And I can't micromanage 100 plus people. But that being said, I develop relationships with my athletes, and I think we've developed a level of trust now.
Like I said, the respect of
for
everyone around you is...
And I'm very fortunate to have developed that I get people that say, I want to work with you. And I'm at a place now where I am selective with who I work with. I interview every single athlete that joins my specific roster on a video call, before we have this conversation. And if we're sitting there and your eyes are looking around the room and you're just nodding, staring at your phone, texting while we're talking, I'm probably not going to fucking bring you on my team because you ain't about it. And you don't actually care to be here. Somebody told you I was a good coach and you're like, sure, I'll hire him. Maybe you got a couple extra dollars to burn, right? I want people that are about it, that are here to fucking win.
Yeah, because if they don't succeed, they make you look terrible.
So back to what I was saying 100%, but back to what I was saying is realistically, if you come to me and you're like, I just want to start steroids, I'm probably going to tell you, show me you want to start steroids first. So for the next 3 months, let's see what you're made of. Show me your training efforts. Show me your training efforts. Show me your fucking diligence to follow a diet. Show me that you can sleep in a regular fucking schedule. Show me the shit that matters first. Because
not partying.
Yeah, because any of those things, if you can't do those things and you take drugs, the drugs aren't going to work. They're not fucking magic. People honestly, and even people that start their first cycle with me that are bodybuilders and follow this shit, a lot of the times they have a misunderstanding of what's going to happen. And they think suddenly they're going to look like fucking Ronnie Coleman after taking a needle for the last 12 weeks and putting a little bit of testosterone in them. Unfortunately, that's not the way the world works, and that's not how these drugs work. They increase recovery and all that kind of stuff. They don't just get you fucking huge. Over time, will they? Yes, but you also need to be dialed the fuck in, and we talked about this on our last podcast. A lot of times, bodybuilders that are taking shit are absolutely dialed the fuck in on every single variable, and it still is not super easy. If anything, a lot of enhanced guys work harder to be as diligent to earn that extra 1% of muscle, right?
That's crazy. All right, we're down to the last couple. I think you might have touched on this, and I don't know why they're asking for a suggested TRT dose, because I'm assuming if they'd on it, their doctor would have told them. Maybe this is
that's a whole nother ball game, brother. We can dive into.
So it says suggested TRT dose and frequency of injection, maybe.
Yep. So I can speak to my own thoughts.
So why would they be asking this if a doctor hasn't already? Why would they consider it if a doctor hasn't already?
Well, put it this way: doctors aren't really educated on this, man. Unless you're an actual hormone specialist, and an endocrinologist. A lot of them don't really know what they're doing, and I've seen this firsthand with my father. And I have a great family doctor, an unbelievable family doctor who's been my family doctor since I was born. I really respect him. He helps me out a ton. He gets me blood work when I want it. I'm very fortunate. My father went on HRT with him prescribing the TRT. I believe what they were doing was completely astronomical and didn't make any fucking sense. One shot every 3 weeks, so you spike your test very high, and all of a sudden by the end of 3 weeks you have no test left in you, and then pin it again. It doesn't really make fucking sense to me. Dosages without blood work doesn't really make fucking sense to me, because the reality is I have friends and athletes who are on TRT, or testosterone replacement therapy, for those that don't know what that is. And that's basically taking testosterone.
Sorry, I should have covered
No, that's
that
okay.
before.
I can talk to it. And the reality is most males in our generation will acquire it, and a lot of females as well. And I accepted that risk the second I took a needle, that I would probably be on it for the rest of my life. But that being said, even those who never take it, at some point in your life now, you're probably going to want it to keep your heart and brain healthy. Now, dosage-wise and what the problem is with that industry is, like I said, they just don't truly understand it. So they don't understand half-lives of drugs. They don't understand all this kind of stuff. They're just like, yes, you need this amount. This is what literature says to take, and we'll keep you healthy by doing this. Is it better than not doing it? For sure. Is it optimal? Absolutely not. So, I mean, I have athletes who run TRT at 50 to 65 milligrams per week, and I have athletes that run 250 milligrams per week to stay normal. That's up to the human body.
That's just normal?
In normal ranges. Is 250 milligrams a week for most people going to keep you in a normal range? Absolutely not. I call that, in my world and in our bodybuilding world, we call that sports TRT. So that's going to keep you above the normal range, but I would argue
your
not.
baseline is just higher than a
Yes.
natural.
So if you got your blood work tested, your testosterone would come back out of range on the plus side. So you'd be above normal ranges. Do I think it's going to put you in a place where it's super, super negative for your health? No. And that's why guys can run it. Do I think that's what most people should do? No. I think you should stay in a physiological range where your body wants to be in, whereas I would argue high side of normal. Are you waking up with a morning erection? You should be. And if you're not, there's some shit. Now, can other factors affect that, like stress and
shitty diet?
100%.
Yeah.
That stuff can affect it as well. But again, if you look at your hormones and your testosterone's low, you're going to want to get optimized. And like I said, maybe you need 75 milligrams a week, because I know a lot of people that take that. Maybe you need 150, right? So I would say Normal ranges are anywhere from 50 to 150 to keep most people in the normal range. Some people might need 200, 250, etc. Now, I've had people tell me that they'll stay in a normal range at 400. Fuck off. No, you will not. Absolutely no, you will
Sounds like
not.
a full cycle.
I've seen it once, and that was somebody who had a severe testicular injury in their past, and literally between communication and signaling from the brain to the gonads just was completely different, and they actually did require a little bit more, and it was about 400 milligrams a week to stay normal. Now, again, putting 400 milligrams a week of an exogenous source in you, that person also will have complications that come with running 400. Just because their test stays normal there doesn't mean putting the oil and other things in you is not going to be a concern, right? So you have to monitor those things because, like you said, estrogen may be a little different. So there's a lot of different pieces that play there, but for the most part, 50 to 150 I would call normal. In our world, when we're just working with athletes, usually it's like 100 to 150 is TRT. 200, 250 is sports TRT. I cap it like 100 to 200 milligrams. That's normal, is what I would say for me to dose people at to keep them in range. 250 plus is outside of that range, with 250 being sports TRT.
And the frequency of injecting to hit that target weekly, would you do that two
So
times?
I'm glad
once
you
a
brought
week?
I'm glad you brought that up. The more frequent injections, the more stable your dosing is. The more stable your bloods are going to be with testosterone, right? As a male and as a female, we get surges of hormones daily, and I try to mimic that as best as possible. So it's a more newfound method that's being used in the world of HRT, but microdosing testosterone, and you can actually do this, with other steroids too. If you're doing blasts, is microdose them. So you use a smaller syringe, like an insulin syringe that you would take the peptides with, or growth hormone, very, very tiny needles. And you just put it sub-Q, so into like belly fat. You don't go a big injection into your muscle, and you take it daily. That's how I do my TRT, and I actually find it way easier and convenient because I'm a very routine.
Does it break down in the fat cell though?
No, so it slowly releases, right? The drug is estered for a period of time, but yeah, you can take subcutaneous anabolics.
Learning every day.
And androgens, you definitely can. And like I said, there's literature on this now, and this is being practiced by a lot of HRT clinics throughout the world, and specifically
probably reduce scarring as well, eh?
big time. Less scar tissue and so forth. So it's and like I said, I find it convenient because it's really, I'm not somebody, believe it or not, and I've done, like I said, I did my first cycle in 2016, and I didn't abuse drugs ever, and I still don't. I don't enjoy injecting intramuscularly. I don't love pinning, to be honest with you. I can't stand it, actually, and if I could have the same results without doing it, I would love to not do it. But I understand that it's part of the game, and it's something I need to do. And like I said, I will be on TRT forever. For myself, I much prefer doing the small dosing more frequently. So and I find it convenient. Like I said, I'm a routine guy, right? So what I do is I'll fill 10 syringes to the mark that I need, which I take 150 to 200, depending where I'm at with bloods and so forth, a week. Right now I'm on 150, like I said, and I'll fill a syringe that will give me 150 milligrams per week. And then what I'll do is I'll dose that daily. So I have a very consistent, like the body would, surge of testosterone daily to keep my levels very stable and steady. I also find it convenient because I load those syringes, I put them in my nightstand, I shower before bed, I go to my nightstand, I wipe with my alcohol swab, inject, move on, right?
I know maybe this is just too much information. Are you replacing the tip or anything like that?
So this is where things get a little wild and a little crazy.
In my head, all I'm hearing is Greg Valentino dropping a needle and having to cut his arm off.
Yeah, definitely not that case.
Sorry, this shit freaks me out. I got to go for my
sure.
my life insurance. I got to get my annual blood test. I just turn because they got to pull like 3 or 4 fucking
and
vials.
there's people that are going to disagree with what I'm about to say.
Okay,
I have a friend who is a dentist and very, very structured in his practice and the way that they do things and so forth, and he uses PEDs, and we've talked about this, and
that tooth is coming out. Yeah.
Well, for the reality, I mean, we've had conversations. He didn't understand PEDs, and I very recently helped him understand it more, and what he was doing was ass backwards to what he should have been doing over the years, and we looked at his blood work, and we came up with some things, and then when I had mentioned this, he was like, wait a second, what? And I'm like, you're going to say that I'm doing fucked up shit while I'm sitting on the other side of the table saying you're doing fucked up shit. You know what I mean? So I'll say this right now in the way I do it. I reuse insulin syringes that are going sub-Q.
Okay.
A diabetic will reuse a needle to pin their insulin for
Really?
6 months. Oh, yeah. Or prick their finger.
Oh, I guess you do that anyways when you
Every
check
day.
your shit.
And they pay for those needles and those needle tips. The insulin is covered. A lot of people aren't getting covered by their lancing devices, their lancets, the tips for their Humalog or their Lantus insulin pens, and they reuse them, right? Now, again, clean injection site, clean needle tip, which I do wipe the tip of my needle with an alcohol swab. Is it the safest thing in the world? No. Am I going to tell you should do that? That's a decision you make. Okay. For me, it's efficient, convenient. Like I said, I load my 150 in a syringe. It's a tiny little needle just going beneath the skin. It's not going intramuscularly where I'm going to get a big muscular infection if something happened. Have I ever had a single complication with it? Never. Myself, personally. Now, have I seen people have complications pinning intramuscularly without reusing syringes? Many times. I'm very fortunate that I am pretty sanitized in the way that I do those injections, because you should be. Yeah. And I would never, ever, ever recommend reusing a needle tip from an actual intramuscular injection. That's crackhead shit. Stay away from that.
And public bathrooms and stuff like that.
Yeah, and again, people are already going to judge me for what I just said, and I don't really give a fuck. I'm educated on this. I'm making a decision to do that myself. Do you have to do that? No. Again, it's very, like I said, I believe that microdosing your HRT is a very, very efficient way. Now, is it annoying to have to fill an insulin syringe with the amount that you need daily? Yes, because they're so small, the needles. It takes a long time to fill that fucking even little amount. Versus the way that
drawing through a 2930 gauge?
So that's what most people would have to do, because the other way to do it, you would have to actually pull into a big syringe, take the back of the insulin syringe off, make sure you don't set it on something, so you stand it up by the base of it.
Any of this shit dirty. Don't cough on it, don't nothing.
So, and again, this is like, when I'm doing this, it's like fucking surgery. I have a bunch of things out, bunch of sanitary cloths on the table, like I use paper towel, I set everything down, fucking I keep everything out of the range.
Clinic.
Basically, and then I basically draw through my 3 mil syringe, and I'll fill that, and then I'll actually pour using a bigger tip into the back of the insulin syringe. And I'll just talk about the whole process right now for anybody who wants to try this or wants to go this route. I don't really care. So you
just please just coming from, I don't have the medical knowledge that he does, but my background, I took a lot of interest in it when I was fighting. I'm hearing so many different places to introduce bacteria.
Yep.
And if you don't think you think I'm getting over paranoid, Google Greg Valentine.
Yep.
It was Valentine or Valentino? Valentino. Look at his arm, because going back to that mindset, he was so insistent, I got to have the biggest arms in the world. He picked a syringe off the ground after dropping it. The tip just touched for a second, and he stuck it in his fucking arm.
Don't ever fucking do that.
When you're so fucked up that you're literally, like you said, crackhead shit, I don't care where this needle's been, I got to stick it in. He had to cut a piece, drain, and then cut pieces of necrotic tissue out of his body.
Yep. It can happen.
That's the opposite of what you're trying to do.
Yep.
So when he's telling you these protocols got to be super clean, he's not fucking kidding. Don't put it down on your counter. If you have to, like, clean it, sterilize it, pull some, oh my God. Like,
and keep in mind too, like for me, I have a prescription for HRT, so this stuff is made in an actual billion-dollar facility. Yes. I know where it's coming from, right? I've had clients get abscesses from injections that were intramuscular from fucking bathtub gear. And
does that actually happen? You hear the jokes like it was made in a big vat somewhere. Maybe not bathtub, but
it's not bathtub. But definitely there's some sketchy labs out there for sure where people are trying to make a buck. And I mean, I've seen it, right? I've seen people opt to use the $30 bottle of steroid instead of the stuff that's a little more expensive, made in a real facility or whatever. And sometimes shit can happen. I personally try to avoid that as much as I possibly can. And but yeah, that being said, so. Where was I going with that now? I lost my train of thought.
You were going through the process.
Oh, yeah. So, like, with my...
You said you take a 3...
So, I take a 3 mil intramuscular needle with, like, an 18 gauge tip, a big tip that I can pull oil into very quickly. I fill the syringe. I open the back of the insulin needle, so I stand it up. And, by the way, there is actually YouTube videos on this. I've seen them before, and I've sent them to athletes for a visual. or I've actually taken a video for an athlete to show them what I do, because again, I want them to do it right.
Yes.
And they make the decision on how they do it. And I have people who will draw. They refuse to reuse that insulin syringe, which I'm like, hey, I respect the fuck out of that. I've been doing this a long time. I'm just, again, efficiency for me is very key. And I'm not concerned about the infection side because I've never seen it, never had it. I'm okay. Now, again, if you want to do that, that's totally fine as well. I respect the shit out of somebody really wanting to make themselves extra safe.
Yeah.
So fill the syringe, 18 gauge. All of a sudden, you pull the back off the insulin needle, stand it up. I personally try, even on a clean surface, I don't set it down. I don't want that tip that's going to be in the oil touching anything at all. It's going to be suspended in the fucking air, and I'm not going to cough or breathe, and I'll throw out the syringe if I do. Well, I'll breathe, obviously, but you know what I'm saying.
It's not on it yet.
And then basically I'll put the needle in the back of that open syringe, and I'll pour to the mark on the syringe that I need to get to. Then I plug the back of the syringe with the actual back of the plunger, but I don't push it in, because if you stand it up and push it in, you're going to push the oil out. So you just plug it. Now you turn it to the point the air bubble, because there will be an air bubble, goes to the top. You sit it there for a second, and then you push the air out. Once the air is pushed out, now that syringe is ready to be used. I'll do that, like I said, with 10 syringes at once for 10 weeks worth of my TRT.
Is that like an hour of your time?
Yep. Yeah, 45 minutes or so, but I only do it once every 10 weeks versus 10 minutes per day, right? Trying to fill an insulin syringe and doing this. That's why I do it.
Yeah.
So then I just put those in a bag with my alcohol wipes, leave them on the side of my bed, and I shower first. Then I wipe with my alcohol wipe, and I do my TRT before bed. Same time every day. It's convenient. I go to bed every day I'm going to bed. I'm not going to forget my shot, right? Again, do you need to do it that way? No, that's how I do it. And I don't really give a fuck if you think it's wrong or right.
I appreciate you sharing that.
But like I said, I've also had athletes who are very, very diligent with things and use normal gear and on cycle doing intramuscular injections, get some sort of infection. Now, do I know they were absolutely being as clean as possible? Maybe they just trained and they just pinned a needle right after they trained. You can get an abscess from injections intramuscularly for sure, right?
Just going too fast, I'm told.
Well, yeah, or going too fast, dirty gear. If it's not a good lab, and if there's something in the gear, right? Maybe there was some sort of bacteria in it. Now, most people will have benzyl alcohol and this stuff to kill bacteria in the gear. There should be that. What if the amounts aren't right? What if the person making the gear doesn't truly know the right amounts, or they're cutting corners to save costs?
So there's alcohol in the solution.
Yeah.
So then why doesn't that kill muscle tissue on injection site? Because if you ever had an open wound and you rub alcohol on it,
it burns, but it doesn't mean it's killing tissue, right? It's killing bacteria.
Oh, interesting.
And it's such a, you need to think about the trace amounts, right? Like, it might be in a full vial a 2% alcohol solution. So it's very, very low. I mean, they do this with tons of other things in clinical settings that you're injecting with yourself. There probably will be some sort of alcohol in there or some sort of antibacterial in there to prevent bacteria. Does that mean it's always going to work? No, right? And again, if you're taking shortcuts and trying to save money and doing all this stuff and skipping those steps, you're probably going to have some people that have some issues, and I've seen it firsthand. And again, for me, I'll just say this straight up. The most amount of injection sites that I've ever seen problems come with are the quads. Most people like pinning their quads. It's easy access. It's right here. You look at the injection site, you put a needle in your leg.
There's so many blood vessels in your quads.
And I'll say this much. I personally have never put a needle in my quad. Not once, and I tell every single person that.
And you got a lot of quad.
And that's so that was another reason. That was another reason for me why I never did. Sometimes people get scar tissue buildup and you see like little bumps and stuff like that. I have very nice legs, and I say that without an egotistical approach. I have very good legs. They were my best body part when I was still competing as a bodybuilder. I never ever wanted to lose lines or disturb what I had in my lower body.
Smooth them out kind of thing.
Yeah, and have any kind of scar tissue buildup or lumps. So I just avoided it. I also had heard a lot of horror stories of people not being able to walk for 4 days from a bad shot. And then, like I said, I've seen friends in the bodybuilding world, maybe not athletes, I've seen athletes pin their quads and have a really bad shot, whether it was from dirty gear or hitting a wrong site. But I have a horror story of a kid I knew. I wouldn't call him a friend. It was somebody I competed against, but we were acquaintances. Yeah. And he got it was something crazy, like 18 mils of pus drained from an abscess on his leg where a doctor used massive horse syringes, put a needle right into the wound, and was pulling out green pus for like 18 fucking mils of pus from this
Christ.
thing. And like, that's disgusting and fucked up. And you let that shit happen, that's where you look at the situation you're talking about, having to get actual muscle tissue cut out.
Yeah.
And that's a real thing, right? So it's no fucking joke why when you're getting surgery, everything is so sterile and sterilized and stuff, because you're, again, putting shit in your body. If there's a foreign bacteria, that can cause a cascade of events that you are going to fucking regret. So do you have to avoid usage? No. Again, I coach a ton of enhanced bodybuilders. I myself use PEDs and I'm on HRT and those kind of things, but it's something to be aware of for sure, and be diligent with your use. Again, do I do things with my HRT that some people might claim to be fucking crazy? For sure I do. Do I think it's a giant risk? I've decided it's not. I've never seen it. I've never had an issue. I've never even had a bad shot with it.
Interesting.
And I've been doing it a long time.
Isn't it intriguing that the whole point of this was people could ask whatever they wanted about PEDs, and we've spent the last hour and a half basically trying to tell people not to use them unless you are 1,000%.
100%.
How much of this was, oh my God, you're going to be huge? Fucking none of it.
None.
This was all, you better go into it with some knowledge. Did anything here sound good if it goes even slightly sideways? Not at all. Like, I love the honesty here, because this is not a joke. Just because you see your online favorite influencer with a six-pack, some girl you worship lifting a lot of weight, this is a serious fucking game, and we've just seen so many athletes dying before 30 because no one's taking this shit seriously.
Yep.
Like, it's come to light more in the last 10, 15 years, but we're also losing more people than we ever have. And this is why.
And do you care if I go somewhere that's a little political? And
there's only one more question left, and it's not even really related, so go ahead, do what you got to do.
So something that the world of bodybuilding, like you just said, and that's what kind of sparked this opinion of mine, and I have absolutely no problem sharing this.
Okay.
The world of bodybuilding has lost more bodybuilders in the last few years than ever.
Yes.
And it's super unfortunate. And as somebody who loves this sport, it's tragic. And it gives a bad name to a sport that I love so much. I don't believe, now, do I think there are people who have passed away as of recently at 60, 55 years old due to heart attacks and stuff that resulted from very poor health management in the past? For sure. Mm-hmm. Do I think the younger guys who are 30 years old, 28 years old, the Dallas McCarvers, these guys that have passed
26,
away.
26, wasn't he? 24?
Well, and that's I guess that was a little bit before this time. And so Dallas McCarver's coach, Matt Jansen, is somebody I respect a ton, and he's been a mentor to me and somebody I look up to in this industry for a very long time. And that's a whole nother conversation. He's just a really good dude, and I know that really, really rocked him, and he was threatened by people in the industry and talked very horribly about for what he did, and it had nothing to do with him. And it's just, again, that's the side of bodybuilding, that's a risk that we take, and I think there were some decisions made in Dallas's route, which he takes. I'm not going to blame him for what happened, but he worked with a coach who didn't have his health in mind, and then came back to Matt after that brief period where some complications happened. And unfortunately, I think Matt got the shit end of the stick where some of those issues came to light after the fact when he started working with him again. But that's besides the fact. Where I'm going with this is, in the last 3 years, we've seen a good handful of bodybuilders pass away. One of my very, very good friends, Braeden, who works at the gym, you've met Braeden, I believe, before. He's our videographer. Had a very close friend of his, George Peterson, pass away 2 days before the Olympia. In his hotel room, he was found dead by his coach. And that rocked the industry. Now, where I'm going with this is, I'm not 100% convinced that PEDs are the problem here. And if we can put two and two together and connect the dots, what happened in the last 3 years in our world that was forced on a ton of people that can have serious health consequences. And that's why I'm not sure I want to go too deep down this road, because
we know what you're saying.
This is a personal belief, but there's no doubt in my mind that you take somebody who's already potentially pushing the gas a little too hard and isn't absolutely the pillar of health, and now you put something in them that I believe, in my opinion, and I'll just say it, is far worse than any fucking steroid you can take, and that causes issues for regular healthy people. What's it doing to somebody that might not be considered that regular healthy person, that already has a higher risk potentially of blood clots, that already has higher cardiac risks of other issues happening? And I believe that was a leading cause to seeing those drops in our industry, and it's unfortunate. But like I said, that's kind of the way the world works, and we can't go back on that stuff now. But I think it's very important, and something I did with my athletes is monitor and educate, right? We have blood markers that we can specifically look at, inflammation markers, cardiac inflammation markers, and make sure these things are in check. We can get our blood work done more frequently, make sure you don't have higher risk of blood clotting and that kind of stuff. And when I see somebody who, for me, is enhanced and I see certain markers drastically elevated, it's like, hey, we probably need to spend the next 4 months focusing on this. Although we were in a position to start taking another cycle and push 10, 12 pounds of growth over the next 4 months, we're actually going to take a step back and we're going to fix this before we make that happen. Yeah. And that's where I think a lot of people go wrong, because they get that one-track mindset of, I just want to build fucking muscle. And that's where, don't put a timeline on your progress, because if you do and you're committed to that only and all you care about is building that muscle in that period of time, that's where you get caught up in the aspect of becoming very unhealthy. And that's...
Compare it to overbuilding a city. If your
100%.
Infrastructure underneath hasn't caught up to what you've developed, you're going to fail.
100%. Yeah. And that's where, again, break it down to the bare bones. We're talking about physiology. Things happen. We need to manage those things and fix those things accordingly, and fix what's broken first before we start adding more fucking blocks to play with, right? And that's just, again, trying to stay away from all that political stuff. That's my opinion on it. Yeah. And it did have a lot of drastic effects on people. And I still see it with natural people that come to me and I'm working with them and they want to go enhanced. And I'm like, hey, there's a lot of markers of inflammation here that we need to fix first that could have been caused by the last 2-3 years of some decisions you made. And that's okay. You made those decisions on what you thought was best and what the government told you was best, or whatever that goes with. I don't really care. You made the decision. Now we have to deal with it. And if I tell you that it's probably not best that you take steroids, you're going to listen to me, and I'm not going to work with you if you decide to go the other way.
Understandable. All right, so let's get to the really important question here at the end. Who has the strongest shoe game at the Den?
Ooh. You know what? I'm
actually start a war now.
No, you know what? I'll take this one on the chin.
All right.
Ty was the one who got me into shoes. He bought me my first ever pair of custom Dunks when we took him to his first national stage, which I was very fortunate for. And it started an addiction for me. But like I said,
Ty's not kidding. His office is full of it.
Yeah. Ty's been in this game longer than me. He understands shoes at a higher degree than me from the investment side of things. I for sure have grown my collection the fastest. I wouldn't say that I have the best collection. Ty has some really, really highly sought after expensive pairs. And he, like I said, he trades and flips shoes and has done this for a long period of time. I'll say for sure his collection is fucking gnarly. Nice. He has a lot of pairs that he just keeps on his shelf and doesn't wear. I think he's a little bit more removed from the flipping game now than he was back in the day, but that kid used to hustle, man. And like I said, he made a lot of money selling and buying shoes.
Awesome.
I've personally only ever sold one pair of shoes because I just didn't want it anymore. When I buy a pair of shoes, I keep them in my office and I rock them all. I don't do the dead stock thing for investments, to be honest with you, because I think if I'm going to invest in something, there's a lot more lucrative things to spend my money on. Yeah. I just love the shoes, and I'm a big guy that if you probably see me, chances are my shoes match my outfit.
Yes,
and I have a lot of outfits to go with my shoe game, and usually it's funny because I'll buy a pair of shoes and I'll buy an outfit and then I'll buy expensive pair of shoes to go with the outfit versus people normally buy shoes and then buy a cheaper outfit to go with the shoes. I tend to a little bit do the opposite, but I'm all over the place. Whether I buy the outfit first, I'm like, fuck, I don't have a pair of shoes to go with this. I better buy a pair of shoes. Or I buy a pair of shoes and it's like, I need an outfit now to match this. And that's just who I am. It's kind of become fun, and it's, that's another thing we've created a culture with, dude. I'll be completely honest with you. If you walk around our gym, the amount of people wearing Jordans these days is crazy. And if you look within our team, I have a group chat with all my 100 and so athletes. The amount of people who have actually started wearing and buying Jordans in the last year and a half to 2 years.
They owe you some kind of royalty at this point, man.
It's hilarious. The amount of people that have said that, it's funny. But I love it, man. It's super cool because, again, it's that culture, and we have shit to talk about and joke about. And we refer, hey, like, check out this pair. This pair's awesome. Somebody's like, I love that pair you have on. I'm going to go buy that. Where do I get it? And I show them where I get mine and so forth.
And no one talks about the dollar value, right?
Yeah.
And this is what I try and explain to people, because when they see, I know we're getting way off topic here, but when they see the kind of things that my friends and I do, they think it's gloating or bragging because they put a value to it.
Yep.
Like, because a lot of my friends, they know all the different private jets and shit like that, and people think that that's because they're not there. They think, oh, someone's bragging. But as you step up your game, to me, if let's say I was 20 years old hearing this, oh my God, you guys are spending $300 to $700 a pair of shoes, would have blown my mind. I never had that kind of money.
Yeah.
To me, it's no different as you step your game up, and then it's something to talk about rather than what the value behind it is.
Sure.
It doesn't matter if it's a private jet and most people can't have it, or a luxury yacht that's 40 to 80 million. The excitement that people have talking about the options, the rarity, what's different about
100%.
this, or I knew the 3 months that this was made. A group of like-minded people love that shit.
Yep.
Everybody on the outside just wants to judge it. I don't have that shoe game. I got a couple nice pieces that I wear when I have to do.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I got my Pumas on that I got at the outlet mall when I was in Vegas.
There you go.
$40.
100%. Right. And like you said, you could look at shoes like you look at designer watches, the Breitlings, the Rolexes and stuff, right? It's just, I think at a little higher level, there's only a few pairs of Jordans and stuff that are worth 10 to 12 to 14K. And to be honest, if you're buying those shoes, I think you're probably better off investing your money in something else. But that being said, those shoes, if you keep them dead stock and you don't wear them, they will go up in value over time, right? And the shoe game is something like that, which I'm not too crazy into it to the point that I'm only buying shoes based on an investment because I'm trying to make $150,000, $200,000 off a pair of shoes. If I get a rare pair of shoes, because again, we kind of do our research, and when Nike's doing a drop, we have access to US accounts that we will have access to the US sneakers app and so forth, and we'll try to get these drops. But it's a rare thing, right? Like, if you actually win a pair of sneakers on the Nike app, when they do a new drop for a shoe, it's very rare to win. And when you win, you don't get the shoe, you have to buy the shoe.
Yeah, you haven't won anything. You've won the right to spend money.
Yes, and you have to do your research knowing like how many pairs they made of this specific shoe, because if it's a limited amount of pairs in comparison to like 20,000 pairs per size, if they make 600 pairs in my size throughout the entire world, that's going to be a well sought after shoe.
Oh, yeah.
And if you win that draw, you're part of that club. Now you own that shoe, and that's where people will resell that, make $200, $300, $400 a shoe. I don't do that. I just don't have time to post shoes to make $300, to be honest with you.
No, you're past that game.
I'm the type of person that I bought that shoe because I really wanted that shoe, and I am a part of that quote unquote club, and I'll wear it when I want to wear it, but it might not be my everyday shit kicker, but I'll keep it on my shelf just to know that I have it.
Absolutely. And I purposely held that one off till the end because I wanted to show a different side to everything we do. We always, like, people come to me on financial stuff, and I just have to talk about it all the fucking time. Sometimes I just want to talk about, man, let's go for a cigar or some 100%, shit like that. It has nothing to do with anything else, but then all of a sudden the eyes light up because it's not something, we just spent, like, it's almost 2 hours talking about bodybuilding. Shit, man, let's talk about some shoes.
Yeah.
And then
and I'll say one thing with that, don't buy Jordan mids. So there's lows, there's mids, and there's highs.
Oh, okay.
And mids are kind of frowned upon because the mid was basically, and this might sound super arrogant again, and I'm very new to the shoe game in the last couple of years, but the mid was actually never made to, like the original Jordan shoe. I don't know if you guys have seen the movie Air. If you haven't, watch it. It's really, really good. It talks about kind of the back end of the making of the Jordan shoe, with Phil Knight and all that kind of stuff. But basically, the mid was made to be a lower class option with cheaper materials so that people could be a part of the club that couldn't afford the Jordan High. And the Jordan High was actually a Jordan shoe made on the court, worn on the court by Michael Jordan. The Jordan 1 High, you name it, that was the original Jordan, which they came out with the Lost and Found in the last year. I think a year and a half ago, roughly December, was when it launched. And that was a replica of the first ever Jordan shoe made, which was...
What year would the original one have come out?
To be honest, I don't even remember.
That's got to be late 80s at that point, eh?
Yeah. I think it may have
Producer
been.
Mac, do you remember? Was it 91? I just remember thinking, man, this is for shoot. Look, I grew up, we didn't have a lot of money.
This is a question, to be honest with you, that this speaks to the knowledge of the shoe game, where I would say Ty is more into it than me. He would know.
He'd know the production month of the very
for
first
sure,
one.
And he knows. Even Kobe's, you go into like that side of things. The shoes that would make money, Ty had back in the day and flipped them to make money.
Wow.
But 1985. Yeah, so that's the Lost and Found. So that I actually have that shoe that was re-released this year on the left there. But
April Fool's, 1985.
The original one is on the right there.
Yeah.
Great movie if you haven't seen it. Watch Air.
No,
It's really, really good. But so yeah, the mid kind of was not made, and then it was made way later for the people that couldn't be a part of the club per se. And that sounds super arrogant and whatnot.
No, that's the way of the world.
It's not the original shoe, right? There was lows and highs. The highs were actually worn on the court by Michael Jordan and so forth. And it's that legacy behind the shoe, right? Now, does that mean I think you're a goof if you wear mids or you're a loser? Absolutely not. Buy your fucking shoes and buy what you can afford, because they are cheaper, and a lot of them are made with cheaper materials and stuff. I'd rather somebody wear mids than a fake pair of Jordan 1 highs. I'll tell you that.
We ain't even going there.
You know what I mean? So, and that's just, again, I'm getting more and more into it as just for fun on the side. And when I see a nice pair I like, I'll buy it. Am I going to buy the Dior Jordan 1s that are $10,000? No, because if I have $10,000, like we talked about before this conversation, I'm probably buying a Rolex, because that will make more money and be a better investment over time, in my opinion. But those shoes will be worth something if you leave them in the box forever. And that's a thing, right? You wear one of those watches, chances are nobody will ever be able to tell you wore it. If you
keep in good shape,
if you keep it in good condition.
Nice events.
I'm telling you right now, you take a pair of Dior 1s out of a box and you wear them one time.
40% drop. Probably.
There's people that will know that. They'll look at the sole and know that you wore it for even once. And that shoe has fucking dropped a ton in value, right? So, I mean, it's all part of the same game, but a different game in the same breath. You know what I mean? But yeah, it's fun. That's why I do it. I think it's fun. It gives me something to collect that's not hurting me drastically. I can't afford to collect $200,000 whips. So,
different game.
Yeah.
But again, you got to be smart on that one too. But you know what? That's a whole different episode, man. I really appreciate you coming out today.
Thank you for having me, brother.
So, hey, we're wrapping that up. From behind the camera, we got producer Mac, got Braeden Miller here. All his credentials are going to be down in the description. You know who I am. I'm Chris. We're going to actually have his business partners at the gym on available eventually. We got Tyler going to come on. I think Dylan said yes as well. Absolutely. So for today, we're out of here. Thanks for tuning in.
Thanks, guys.